Welcome to Blog Talk Radio in high fidelity.
Broadcasting from Cincinnati, you're listening to the Ringside Reporter Podcast. All the news from the world of boxing right here.
Well, I'm talking to you the way I want to talk to you.
Now, here's your host, Eric Lorda.
And we are live, and it is Hawk time. Welcome to the Ringside Reporter Podcast, where we talk about the latest boxing news. If it's related to boxing, we'll talk about it here. My name is Eric Lorton. I'm here with my co-host, Ringside Robert, and England's adopted son, Joe Habib. And we have a great show for you today. And as always, you can catch us on the web at www.ringsidereporter.com. If you want to call and ask questions or just give your 2 cents, you can call in right now at 323-870-3857. You have to hit option 1 if you want to talk to us. We'll be here till about 9 p.m. tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, so 2 hours. Today, we're going to talk about the life of Aaron Pryor. Of course, we got the sad news today that one of the best ever, Aaron Pryor, passed away. We'll talk about that. In other news, Zab Judah is now a 2-time Train Wreck of the Week winner. We'll also talk about Cincinnati's own Adrian Bronner. He may be getting the title shot next and bringing it back home to Cincinnati without any questions. But first, we get started with Aaron Pryor. It was reported earlier today that Aaron the Hawk Pryor had passed away this morning about 5:57 a.m. He was surrounded by his family. He was 60 years old. A family statement put out by Pryor's wife, Frankie, read as follows. We are heartbroken and sad to announce that the Hall of Fame boxing champion, Aaron Pryor, passed away at his home, surrounded by family at 5:57 a.m. today after a long battle with heart disease. Aaron was known around the world as the Hawk and delighted millions of fans with his aggressive and crowd-pleasing boxing style. But to our family, he was a beloved husband, father, grandfather, brother, uncle, and friend. We appreciate the outpouring of condolences and sympathy and ask that our family be allowed time to grieve and for your loss. Aaron Pryor began boxing at the age of 13. The Hawk defended his title 11 times and retired in 1991 with a record of 39 wins, 1 loss, and 35 by knockouts. As the WBA welterweight champ from 1980 to 83 and the IBF junior welterweight champ from 83 to 85, Pryor firmly established his place in boxing history. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1996 and the World Boxing Hall of Fame in 2001. In December 1999, the Associated Press voted Aaron Pryor as the greatest junior welterweight of the century. I think he was the greatest junior welterweight of all time. Beeb and I were talking about this before the show. Who else is there? Who else is at 140 pounds? Julio Cesar Chavez. That's it. That's it. I mean, you think about it, and you think about who could have really posed a threat to him. Who could have posed who was better than him at 140? I mean, who was better? I don't know of anybody better. Just on a side note, too, in 1998, Aaron Pryor's autobiography came out, and it was titled Flight of the Hawk. If you've never read this, I would encourage everyone to read it. It's an amazing book, and to hear what this guy went through, and he came out on top, is just amazing. It talks about his drug problems and relationships. He is very open and honest in the book. That's what struck me when I read this book for the first time, is how open he was. It wasn't like a sugar-coated autobiography where he always comes out on top and he's always the winner. And it was a very realistic picture of what his life was. And it was a difficult life. And a lot of times it was difficult by the decisions he made. He brought a lot of that on himself, but I tell you what, it was something else. That's for sure. It was, if you haven't read it, I would recommend picking it up. It's called Flight of the Hawk. It's Aaron Pryor's autobiography. Of course, the big fight that everybody remembers Aaron Pryor for, it's funny because living in Cincinnati, I was always a big fan of his. He was the guy here. I mean, when I was growing up, I remember he actually won the title here in Riverfront Coliseum when he fought. Who did he fight? I don't know. I'll bring it up. My memory's been blank all day. but he ended up fighting and winning the title here in Cincinnati by knockout. And he fought a lot here in Cincinnati. He fought a couple of fights in Dayton, fought a lot in Cincinnati. He was Cincinnati's champion, man. And that's the one thing you could say about him is he was from Cincinnati, and he lived in Cincinnati. When he retired, he came back to Cincinnati. Yeah, I mean, Beeb, give me one of your Aaron Pryor moments, man. What do you remember? When you heard this news? When I shared the news with you this morning, what were you thinking about? What was what did your mind go to when you heard about this?
Well, Aaron Pryor, who could forget who could forget those Alexis Arguello fights? Those will be embedded in history forever. Alexis Arguello was thought to be the best fighter around at that particular time, and he was the favorite to beat Aaron Pryor when they first. And the fight was very competitive early on, and Aaron Pryor just took that fight over with will and determination, and he just wore the thin man down, and that was just an amazing moment in boxing history. They obviously had the rematch. And then, he had the eye injury and he took 2 years off, and he came back after that 2-year layoff. And I remember watching him on Tuesday Night Fights when he was making his comeback. And, he was still a formidable foe for anyone, and he never got a chance to fight Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, or Roberto Duran. He never ended up going up to 147 for whatever reason. Roberto Duran skipped 140 and went right to 147, so that fight was never made. But, those would have been great matchups for him. Regardless of those matchups taking place or not, he still has, as I said, those 2 fights with Arguello that will go down in history as two of the greatest fights in the history of the 140-pound division. I mean, let's take a look at this division. As you said, besides him, who else is there? Julio Cesar Chavez, and that's it. So, when you think of the 140-pound division, you think of Aaron Pryor without question. I don't think any boxing historian could overlook how great of a fighter Aaron Pryor was, how entertaining a fighter, how much heart, grit, and determination this man had. And, we all have skeletons. We all have demons. And Aaron Pryor was no exception to that, as you said. And, if you read the autobiography, you read about all the problems he's had. But with all that being said, he was still able to achieve great things in this sport and become the greatest 140-pound champion of all time, in my opinion. So what else can you say about this great fighter? And as you said, he was a great man. I never got the chance to meet him, but so I'm going to take your word for it. You met him. Other people have met him, and no one's ever said a bad thing about this guy. So, my condolences go out to his family. May he rest in peace, man. He will be remembered forever in this great sport of boxing.
Absolutely. Antonio Cervantes was who he won his first title from, and he won that at Riverfront Coliseum here in Ohio, Cincinnati, and he ended up knocking him out early. Robert, what about you? When you heard the news, I think it was like this afternoon when I contacted you or whatever, what were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I immediately had to call you back. I'm like, because in the message you said, well, we're going to do an Aaron Pryor segment and what, and I'm like, what? So I immediately called Eric back. I'm like, what's the deal? Did he die? And Eric goes, yeah, he's dead. And I'm like, whoa. Who can ever forget the 2 classics he had with Alexis Arguello? And Joe, you bring up a good point. Nobody ever had a bad thing to say about him. Even Alexis Arguello, after both fights, showed him nothing but class. And, normally fighters, when they're fighting each other, they hate each other's guts. Alexis Arguello went out of his way, especially after the rematch, and basically told him, hey, man, don't worry about a thing. You're a good guy, and, we'll be friends for life. And I guess they were. But my question, and I agree with your assessment, but why didn't, maybe I'm missing something here. why didn't Pryor and Julio Cesar Chavez ever fight?
According to his manager,
they were around at the same time.
Yeah, and according to his manager, and I talked to his manager, according to his manager, Julio Cesar Chavez did not want to fight Aaron Pryor. He did not want to fight Aaron Pryor. And you know what? Pryor would have been all wrong for him. And I don't blame him. I mean, I don't
blame him.
I don't think that if you talk about, like, say, Julio, I don't think Julio was afraid of him. You know what I mean? I think Julio would have fought him with no problems. Julio's the guys that manage Julio, the Don Kings, everybody else. There's no way they were going to put him in there with Pryor. None.
Oh.
No.
Because I was going to say Julio. I was going to say Julio. He's the kind of guy that would fight anybody. So
yeah,
But I agree. Aaron Pryor is the best 140-pound champion in my lifetime. And I've been watching this sport since March 8, 1971. So,
yeah.
Somebody's going to have to go a long way to take that title from the Hawk.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, like I said, man, one of the greatest, man. One of the greatest. And it was funny, man, like I said, man, being from Cincinnati and kind of growing up with him and stuff as far as, like, knowing who he was. He was a local celebrity and everything. I got the pleasure of seeing quite a few of his fights, not necessarily live, but I've saw a good 90% of his fights that he's ever had. And I remember when the Alexis Arguello fight was made, and I was just, of course, a kid when that fight was made. I remember thinking to myself, that's a complete mismatch. Pryor is going to kill this guy. This fight isn't even close. I just remember thinking there's no way. And I liked Alexis too. I really liked him. I mean, he just came off that the Mancini fight. He was on cloud nine. I mean, the guy was very popular and everything like that. And I just remember thinking to myself, man, that's a mismatch. Why would he fight Pryor? That's so crazy to me. Because Pryor was such a legend here, and you see him in the ring and he's blowing by everybody and everything like that. And true to form, I mean, it wasn't a mismatch, but I mean, it was very competitive. That second fight was definitely, I thought, a mismatch, but Pryor did what he was supposed to do in both fights. That's for sure. I was talking to Beeb about this earlier too, and I made reference to the fact that I had talked to Pryor's trainer before. We had met, it was my father and myself, and we had met Aaron Pryor at the Olympic trials when they came through Cincinnati. It was like the box off, how like they have like the Midwest trials and everything, and then from that point, then they go on to say Denver or whatever, and have to find out who makes the team. But before they find out, and like Denver, before they go to find the team, they got to have like the Midwest trials, the Southern trials, that kind of thing. So the Midwest trials were here in Cincinnati, and they were at the Hyatt Regency downtown, and a whole lot of people were there. I mean, you had Jeff Lacey was there, a lot of boxing boxers were there. Tim Austin, another Cincinnati native, another guy that's a great guy too. Former champion, he was there, and then Aaron Pryor was there also. And Aaron Pryor was actually signing autographs there, and he had like a booth set up and everything. He was watching the fights, but he had a booth set up so people can get autographs and everything. So we walked over there to talk to him, and Aaron Pryor talked to us for about 20 to 30 minutes. All right, this was toward the end of the show, and just tell you, this was a while ago, because I remember Gary Russell Jr. was fighting in the trials, and so was Rasheed Warren. He was fighting in the trials as well. And that's how I got introduced to those two guys also. And I remember we were talking to Pryor, and it was about 20 or 30 minutes he was talking to us. And we were talking to him about his career and stuff like that. He was telling us stories. About 20 minutes into this, because the show had already wrapped. They had the last fight of the night and everything like that. Show is already wrapped. And they're calling boxers into the ring to meet the Olympians and stuff, or meet the potential Olympians. And about 20 minutes into this, they're calling Pryor. And I said, well, I'll let you go and I'll let you get to the ring, and he kept talking and he kept telling us stories, and we would talk back. I mean, he talked to us for about a good 10 minutes. They were calling him for about 10 minutes. His manager says, hey, we got to go. And he kept talking. That's how much this guy cared about the people who, his fans and everything like that. I mean, it was pretty amazing to watch, because like I said, they're calling him in the ring. Boxer, everybody's waiting for him in the ring. There's a ring full of boxers waiting to meet him and everything like that. And he took the time out to talk to my father and myself, and It's one of those experiences you'll never, ever forget. I mean, but that's the kind of guy he was. And living in Cincinnati, a lot of people who knew him, or say they knew him, no one ever has a bad word to say about the guy. None. Obviously he had his demons and everything like that, and you hear stories and everything, but as far as the person goes, no one ever had a bad word to say about him. The other thing, we were, my father and I, we went to the Mike Tyson, Mike Tyson did the Undisputed Truth, his play or whatever, his one-man show.
Yeah.
So he came down to the casino down here. We were here at the casino. I got, I think I got my father tickets for his birthday or something like that. It was something going on. And we went down there, watched his show. Mike Tyson is doing his Broadway show. He's talking about his life and everything like that. Mid-sentence, midway through the show, Mike Tyson stops cold, just stops his show and introduces Aaron Pryor. He says, "Oh my God, it's the champ." And he said, "Eric, stand up." And he was like, "It's Aaron Pryor." Mike Tyson actually teared up while he introduced him. He was that much taken with Pryor. I mean, it was amazing. And of course the crowd went nuts because we're in Cincinnati and it's Aaron Pryor, but he was just, I mean, to watch him the way clearly he had an impact on Mike Tyson. Clearly he had, touched him in some way. You know what I mean? And that was the kind of guy he was. And we talked about Alexis Arguello and how they became friends after those two fights. And they did. They became really close friends after that. He actually, to the point where Pryor actually helped Arguello campaign. He was running for office. Arguello was running for some office down there. I don't know if it was mayor or governor or something like that in Nicaragua. And Pryor actually went down there to help him campaign. And so, go ahead.
And if I'm not mistaken, Eric, didn't he go to Alexis Arguello's funeral a few years ago?
He did. He absolutely did. And I know his son, I think his son still kept contact with him and everything like that. Alexis' son, kept contact with him and everything like that. He had a good impact on Adrian Broner. I know when Adrian Broner was coming up, I know Pryor was around there, helping him come up, kind of giving him the ropes. Now, whether it took or not, who knows? But he was there. A lot of people don't know Pryor also had a son that went to boxing also, Aaron Pryor Jr. Now he could never live up to Aaron Pryor Sr., obviously. I mean, that's some big shoes to fill. But he turned pro, I guess, when he was about 20 years old, and Pryor had trained him and managed him for a time and that kind of thing. And it's funny when I was kind of looking at some of the excerpts of the book again, and they mentioned like La Rosa's Pizza, and it's just kind of funny to go there and to read that book, and then just, the things that, like Buddy La Rosa was his manager. Well, Buddy La Rosa's famous here, not really for managing fighters now. He's more famous for the chain of pizza companies that he has here, La Rosa's Pizza. He's famous for that. He's not really famous for, training fighters anymore. But he's another one that really helped Pryor out through his career. He actually signed Pryor in his second pro fight, La Rosa did, and it built a gym for him. He rented a space out, built a gym for him, and it was him and a couple of other fighters that Aaron kind of chose a couple of other fighters or whatever, and Aaron got to train there. He invested a lot of money in Pryor and everything like that, and so just a lot of good things came up from Cincinnati for Pryor, and he brought a lot of good things to the city for sure, and he's one of those guys, man. He's going to be missed, man, for sure. Robert, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go as far as to say, I'm sorry. Would you go as far as to say that he was the greatest fighter out of Ohio?
I think so.
Does he have that title?
I think he is. I've always thought that. Because you can look at, a lot of good fighters come out of Ohio. Yeah, you look at Buster Douglas, who won the heavyweight championship of the world, one of the biggest upsets ever. He's kind of a punchline now, but that's the champ. That's the guy. You also talk about, Ezra Charles, Ray Boom Boom Mancini. That's right. Ezra Charles. A lot of good fighters come out of Ohio. Yeah, but you look at what's on Pryor's resume. This guy, defended his title 11 times, undisputed. You weren't, 35, think about this for a minute. 39 wins, 35 by knockout. 35 by knockout. Only 4 people ever saw the distance with that guy. And how good was he? He was
And
expected
only
to go.
loss.
Yeah, and that loss came at the tail end of his career. He was coked up at the time. He admits this in his book. This is what he said in his book, that he was coked up at the time. I'm telling you, man, in this book, he is very, very honest. And somebody in the chat said, what about Ezra Charles? We mentioned him. Ezra Charles, he's a good fighter too. Not going to take anything away from him. There's a big mural downtown. And I think like right around I think it's the Over the Rhine area that has Ezra Charles painted on the side of a building. It's really amazing. But yeah, he means a lot to Cincinnati too. But yeah, Aaron Pryor, man, this was it's one of those things because you grew up with Aaron Pryor, so that's why he's your my hero, like that. That's why I think he's the best boxer. But if you grew up in the time of like say Ezra Charles, maybe he's your guy, or maybe if you grew up in Youngstown, maybe Boom Boom's your guy. I don't know. But for me anyway, for my money, man, it was definitely Aaron Pryor. Aaron Pryor for sure. I just remember him. I remember going to the Golden Gloves when we were younger. We would go to the Golden Gloves and watch the fights and everything. And they would have like Pryor posters. They would be selling like Aaron Pryor posters of him with the belt and everything. I mean, it was just like I said, man. He was a local in those circles. He was a celebrity. He was just a celebrity, So
Yeah.
we talk about we talked about that book and we talked about the 2 fights with Arguello, that obviously were his biggest fights, his biggest name fights. The one thing that always gets brought up in those fights, and Robert, you know what I'm talking about here, the one that I mixed, the Panama Lewis thing.
Exactly. Yep.
And I think it was about maybe the 10th round or somewhere in there that he says, give me the one that I mixed. And in Panama Lewis, they gets this bottle that's got tape all over it, and he somehow gets an energy boost or whatever. He addresses that on the book as well. And what he says about it is he said that it was schnapps. It was like peppermint schnapps, he said. And it was mixed with water. It was peppermint schnapps and water. That's what he said it was. Buddy LaRosa kind of attested to this too. He said that he was in training. When he was in training, Panama Lewis was there. He said he didn't really care for Panama Lewis too much. I think that was in there. And he took a drink. He was thirsty, so he grabbed some water from the corner and drank it, and immediately spit it back out. He said, "What is that?" And they told him it was schnapps also. So it was one of those things, man. And I always thought it was like the antihistamine when it came out with the Louis Resto thing. I always thought it was like antihistamines or whatever, but no, it was for sure. It was. I think it was schnapps. I really do, because he was so honest in the book about everything. He was honest. There was some sexual assault going on that he was blamed for, that they made fun of him for. All his drugs. He was found in a crack house in Miami at one point before a fight. All right. He was so honest about everything. Why would he lie about that? Why would he choose that to lie about? Why not,
Right.
Because either way, he still cheated. I mean, he's still like, if you want to put it on the line, he cheated. But, go ahead.
And I believe Panama Lewis is the only one that's been suspended from boxing for life, correct?
Yeah. Well, he was suspended for life for removing the padding. That was for the Louis Resto incident also. He was actually suspended for life for that. But, yeah, I mean, so why would he lie? I mean, of all the stuff, if you read the book, and you see all the stuff that he's copping to in that book, why on earth is he going to lie about that? So I believe it was schnapps. I don't believe it was any kind of antihistamine or whatever. I do believe it was that. But all in all, it was wrong. He didn't need it, put it that way. But, yeah, man, it was just sad, man. My wife came home from church this morning and told me about it. She said, "Did you hear about Aaron Pryor?" I said, "No, what happened?" She said, he died. I was like, "What?" And I immediately went to the computer and looked it up, and I couldn't find anything at first. But then via Twitter, I found it, and then, subsequently news outlets. And then I reported it. And then, of course, we see like local news outlets posting it, and then national news outlets posting it and stuff like that. So, yeah. Man, just crazy, man. Just crazy. And a lot of people forget what a great amateur this guy was. You know, he lost to Howard Davis in the Olympic trials. He really should have beat Howard Davis, but he beat the snot out of Tommy Hearns in that fight. And that was, he had an amateur fight with Tommy Hearns, and he beat the tar out of him. You know?
He really did.
Yeah, he did. A lot of people, and, I tell you, the other thing, man, is a lot of people were talking about, too, was, his fight with Sugar Ray Leonard. And why he never fought Sugar Ray Leonard. That was the fight that everybody wanted to see. I know I wanted to see it. Everybody wanted to see him and Sugar Ray Leonard fight. Thomas Hearns, that was the other thing. Thomas Hearns was said to avoid him. But Sugar Ray Leonard, this came out in the book too. And Pryor admitted to it. He says that everybody accuses Sugar Ray Leonard of ducking him. And he said Sugar Ray Leonard never ducked him. Says Sugar Ray Leonard, and I believe, if it's been a while since I read it, but I believe it was $10 million. I believe it was $10 million to fight Sugar Ray Leonard that he turned down. And he turned down because he was on drugs. He couldn't, he was cracked up. He was on drugs. So there's nothing he could have, he can't take it. He can't take it when he's on that. He can't, So yeah, man. So that's what. When you read the book, man, a lot of his problems obviously stem from drugs and everything, but how early in his career, I mean, he got into it like after right around the Arguello fight is when all this kind of goes down. And it's pretty crazy to read, like all the stuff that he was going through between fights and everything like that. And how could he get it together? And just amazing, man, just an amazing story, an amazing life. Yeah, man, we're going to miss him for sure, man. Just, one of the best boxers I've ever seen in my life. That's for sure.
Oh, yes.
So, wow. So rest in peace. The Hawk time, Aaron Pryor, man. Sad stuff. If you want to give us a call, 323-870-3857. If you want to talk or give your 2 cents. And if you're in the chat and if you're watching us, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, man. If you like what we're doing, give us a thumbs up. It was said last week, we had a caller last week that just kind of blew my mind when he said, you guys don't ever ask us for a dime. And it totally floored me. It totally floored me because we will never ask you for a dime. I'm surprised that people ask you for dimes.
No,
go ahead.
As I pointed out to that caller last week, we do this for the love of the game. We love the sport. We're not going to be like other shows and have our hands out. We do this because we love it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We love it, man. That's why we come to you every week. All right, let's talk about the fights this weekend, man. Not a whole lot, but title implications on the line across the pond. Ricky Burns versus Carol Relic from Glasgow, Scotland. Ricky Burns survived some rocky moments to unanimously outpoint Carol Relic in the first defense of his WBA World Super Lightweight title to set up a big money fight with Adrian Broner. The Scottish boxer was put under a lot of pressure early on and late in the fight, but he did enough to win the fight: 118-110, 116-112, and 116-112. Beeb, what did you think of Ricky Burns' performance here?
Well, he was in there with a tough opponent. I thought Relic definitely held his own in this fight. Burns has slowed down a bit, without question. But Burns is still in great shape. Burns still knows how to fight. And he's effective while moving backward as well as moving forward. And I thought that early on, Relic came out quick and Burns was just trying to get a feel for the rhythm of Relic. And in the process of doing that, he may have given away the first 2 or 3 rounds. But once he got adjusted, started picking up on what Relic was doing, he constantly would make a backward step here, side step here, and constantly made Relic have to reset. And while Relic was resetting, he wasn't really in range. It took him time to get back in range to try to hit Ricky Burns, and he would come up a little short, or he would miss the chin or the head, and end up hitting Burns on the shoulder or the chest, which obviously are scoring blows to a degree. They're touching your opponent while you're doing that, but they're not really effective blows that a judge is going to really score. But then, Ricky Burns started to slow down just a bit in the later rounds. I don't know if that was because he had to constantly move or the pressure of Relic, But Relic hurt Burns a few times. Burns regrouped, took the shots well. I actually did score this fight for Burns. I thought that he won enough of the middle rounds, as a lot of people were saying as well, to give him a decision victory. But my scorecard was very close, and it was 115 and 113. I was talking to Davey Boy Essex. He had the fight a draw. I believe one of the commentators had the fight a draw too. So I felt the scorecards were a bit out of line. They weren't really an accurate reflection of how this fight went. But all in all, Ricky Burns did what he had to do, put them middle rounds in the bank, and had the points already piled up in his favor. And, he could afford to lose a few of those later rounds. But, I don't know if this is a performance that's going to get people excited for an Adrian Broner matchup, because if a guy like Relic, who's virtually unknown with all due respect, can force Burns to have to really dig deep and, really test Burns, then what's a guy like Adrian Broner going to do to Burns? So we'll have to just see. This fight with Adrian Broner, I wish it happened earlier in both fighters' careers. But you know what? The path that Adrian Broner seems to be taking lately is the path of least resistance. And, this could be another title for Adrian Broner. The question is, how effective will he be going back down to 140? Because we know how undisciplined he is in between fights. He balloons up in weight. He's gone up to 147 and then went back down to 140 and obviously had problems making 140 again. So will he have problems making 140, and will that affect him against Ricky Burns, who's always in razor sharp, great shape? So that's going to be interesting to see if Broner, will get down in weight, train properly, and really have a good mindset going into this fight with all the out of the ring distractions that we already know that Adrian Broner has in his life. And we know Ricky Burns will definitely show up to fight. So that makes the fight a little bit intriguing in my mind. But skill for skill, we know Adrian Broner is definitely the more skilled fighter and definitely the hotter puncher and the quicker and the more athletic fighter. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that I tell you what, man, I don't see Ricky Burns getting past Adrian Broner, especially if they come here. I don't see that happening at all. And I mean, we'll talk about it in the details of that fight later on, but yeah, that's a tough road for Adrian Broner, or for Ricky Burns, man. And that's an uphill battle. But Broner, and what do you really make of Broner in this too? Like, you think about it, like he has 4 world titles or something like that. I mean, but he hasn't really fought the best competition to get him. It's like you said, he does take the path of least resistance here. I don't see him fighting Terrence Crawford. Put it that way. I don't see him putting his hat in there for Terrence Crawford.
Yeah.
Trying to get that. I didn't see him putting his hat in there for Victor Postal. I mean, what do you do? It's like, come on, man, really? All right. So also too on that undercard, Dillian Whyte versus Ian Lewison. Dillian Whyte captured the vacant British heavyweight title, which, let's be honest here, it doesn't really mean a whole lot, to be honest. Lewison was bothered by a nose injury, and the corner stopped it at the end of the 10th round. We hear a lot about Dillian Whyte, but honestly, until he fights somebody credible, how do you take him seriously? I mean, I know he fought and lost to Anthony Joshua, who is kind of like the heir apparent right now, but why don't we put him against, if they're that high on him in there, but they only match him against, again, this is a guy who doesn't come out of the UK to fight, or doesn't fight anybody in the UK. He fights Ian Lewison, and I'm not saying Ian Lewison is a bad fighter or anything like that, but he's not a quintessential guy you think about when you think of top 5 fighter or top 10 fighter, and they've been making a lot of noise with Dillian Whyte, but at the same time, I haven't really seen much out of him. Beeb, what are your thoughts on Dillian Whyte?
I think Dillian Whyte could definitely fight. And again, you're in a division, the heavyweight division, where one punch can change it all. And he definitely possesses that one punch power. We've seen it. He hurt Anthony Joshua. And to Anthony Joshua's credit, he was hurt, but he held on and he recouped, and he was able to come back and stop Dillian Whyte. I agree with you, though. The opposition has not been stellar, with the exception of Anthony Joshua. But based off of what I've seen, in that Anthony Joshua fight, I still have high hopes for this guy. I think that he still can do a lot in this division. I would have loved to have seen him fight a guy like Remains Deverne. I thought that would have been a nice step up,
Yeah.
A guy like Deverne who's pretty solid but not exceptional. So that's a good name to get on your resume. Maybe a Malik Scott. Excuse me. There's some guys he could step up against. Maybe if he doesn't want to jump in, all the way up the ladder, there's some mid-level guys, some fringe contenders that I think he should fight to prepare him for that upper level, because he may get thrown into one of those big fights, and because of having the types of fights that he's had thus far in his career, with the exception of Joshua, as I said, he won't be prepared for that. So boxing is a process. You take baby steps. But at some point, you got to take the training wheels off, and they haven't taken the training wheels off with Dillian White ever since that fight with Joshua. So if I'm managing Dillian White, I'm thinking about stepping him up just a tad bit more than what we've been seeing as of late.
Yeah, I would go along with that for sure. Because like I said, they're marketing him the right way. We hear about him all the time. Matchroom has got he's with Matchroom. They've got a lot to say about him and this and that. But again, are these just feeders for Joshua? What, you know what I mean? He's not. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a tough situation. But that was it for the fights this weekend. Not a whole lot going on. Not a whole lot at all. So let's look ahead to next weekend, where it's even more barren. October 14th, which I believe is a Friday. Robert, you're my savant.
That's correct.
All right.
That's correct.
Very good. Very good. Ricardo Rodriguez versus David Quijano, 10 rounds, junior bantamweights. That's going to be on Telemundo. And on Robbie's favorite station, Unimas. Jose Felix versus Alan Herrera, 10 rounds, lightweights. Daniel Giel will also be in action against Reynold Quinlan. Doesn't look like it's from Australia, 12 round super middleweights, and it doesn't look like there's a channel for that, so you may have to stream it somewhere. Let's see what else is going on here. On the 15th, which is Saturday, Jorge Paez Jr., this is on BN Sports, versus Johnny Navarrete, 10 rounds, junior middleweights. And Tomoki Kameda versus Cecilio Santos, 10 rounds, bantamweights. BN Sports, that might be a good card. Also, too, from England, Tony Bellew versus Robert's boy, BJ Flores, 12 rounds for Bellew's WBC. For Bellew's WBC cruiserweight title. And on the undercard there, Luke Campbell, Olympic fame, versus Derry Matthews, 12 rounds, lightweights. That should be a good fight. That should be a pretty good fight. So we'll see how that goes. That's it for the weekend.
Bellew's going to cream BJ Flores.
You think so?
Eric, a fight?
Yeah, I know. Anybody that sits in his corner, Eric, after 11 rounds of fighting and saying, and when he's told you've got to cut the ring off, and his response is, I don't know how to do that. I can't take him seriously when it comes to analyzing fights or fighting. Bellew is going to retain his title.
Eric,
yes.
I have to jump in because Baby Boy Essex sent me a fight this week, in another fight from overseas. It was Liam Walsh, a guy that a lot of people are high on, who a lot of people are saying is one of the most underrated boxers in the sport right now. And he fought Andrei Klimov, a guy who actually went the distance with Crawford, and also lost to Jose Pedroza, if I'm not mistaken. So those are only 2 losses on his record. But Liam Walsh won very handily in this fight, scored a knockdown in this fight. And Liam Walsh is a guy who's really slick, changes up the look a lot, gives his opponents different looks, throws those little feints, makes those little upper body movements, moves his head constantly. He's a cutie in it. He's a slickster. I'm going to be so bold to say that he reminds me a little bit of Pernell Whitaker, just by his movements and just the way he fights. I'm not going to say he's on that level just yet. Believe 21 or 22 fights, but this is a kid that I think people should look out for. Another one of those hidden gems over in the UK. as Beeb always does, likes to open your eyes and put your emphasis on some of these guys overseas that you may not think about. So this is why YouTube is a great tool. And once again, as always, shout out to Davey Boy Essex for constantly educating the Beeb and really letting the Beeb live up to his name of UK's adopted son. And I wouldn't be UK's adopted son without people like Davey Boy Essex sending me these fights. So I just want to give him a shout out. I just want to thank him for sending me this fight. And yes, Davey Boy, Liam Walsh is a guy that I'm going to be watching and I'm going to be looking out for. And I hope you guys, are onto this tip too as well.
And my apologies too, because Davey Boy sent me that fight and I completely forgot about it. It's Liam Walsh versus Andrei Klimov. Yeah, after that IBF Junior Lightweight Eliminator. Very good, man. Very good stuff. Thank you, Davey Boy. And thank you, Beeb. All right, and that's the fights this weekend. That is the fights this weekend. Wow, that is a drizzling you know what. Wow. I mean, nothing.
You betcha.
Nothing. Robert, nothing. What's going on with this?
It's horrible.
It is, right? What's going on there, man?
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing going on.
I don't think anybody in boxing wants to interfere with the baseball playoffs, to be honest with you. That's the way it looks anyway.
Yeah, could be. Well, that, and you got football, and you got that, and yeah, college football, you got, it's going up against a lot of stuff.
And then hockey starts this week, so.
Nobody cares about hockey. Except you. Do you buy like all the passes? You
NBA,
buy like
the NBA's right around the corner.
NBA starts October 25th.
So,
Robbie and his Golden State Warriors, Daddy.
That's right.
Right,
Hey, what about the Cavs, the world champions? LeBron, huh? Did they win? Hey, Robert, did they win?
Right.
Did they win the championship last year? I don't remember.
Yes, they did.
Who did they take down for that?
King James.
Who did they beat for that?
James.
I don't remember who they got for that.
The Golden State Warriors. That was on Father's Day of all days, June 19th.
Robbie's Golden State Warriors got waxed last year. Yeah.
Well, you know what? We got Kevin Durant, so we made a major event.
Here we go. Trying to buy a championship now. Trying to buy a championship.
There you go. There you go.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, Joe, your Celtics are going to be quite improved, so don't worry about that. They're going to make the playoffs.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our news and rumors section. Tyson Fury. And, we were going to put this, I was going to put this as train wreck of the week, but I just couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to put this as train wreck of the week, man. Earlier in the week, Tyson Fury made news by retiring from boxing, only to trumpet 3 hours later and take it back. This was actually in the BBC. This was funny, man. This was right on Monday. We come out and it was like, what is going on? I get, we see a tweet from, somebody just said train wreck of the month. That is an understatement, kid Stacy. Let me tell you what, that is the understatement of the year right there. So, all right. So early in the week, he tweets this out right on Monday. Big news. I mean, because there's nothing going on the weekend. So I'm like, oh my God, he just retired. Are you serious? 3 hours later, he takes it back and says, you're not going to get rid of me that soon or whatever. Then I was talking to Robert on Wednesday. We're getting ready for a show and everything like that. And then he said that Fury did an interview with Rolling Stone magazine where he admitted all this. He did this and he did that. I was like, what? So I found the article. We posted it on Ringside Reporter. We also posted a link to the article on there. So you guys can go read the full article over there on Rolling Stone. Fury gave an interview to Rolling Stone where he admitted to using cocaine to help with his depression. He also admitted that he hadn't been training for months. Here are some excerpts from the article. Fury said, I am seeing help, but they can't do anything for me. They can't do nothing for me. What I've got is incurable. I don't want to live. All the money in the world, fame, glory means nothing if you're not happy. And I ain't happy. I'm far from it. On drugs, he said, I've done lots of cocaine. Lots of it. Why shouldn't I take cocaine? It is my life, isn't it? I can do what I want. Yeah, I have done cocaine. On not being in the gym, he says, in preparation for the Klitschko fight, I've not been in the gym for months. I've not been training. I've been going through depression. I just don't want to live anymore. If you know what I'm saying, I've had total enough of it. They forced me to the breaking edge. Never mind cocaine. I just didn't care. I don't want to live anymore. So cocaine is a little minor thing compared to not wanting to live anymore. Robert, what were your thoughts? Because I know you didn't hear the whole article or whatever, but you got the gist of it because you were telling me about it, and when I read it, it was pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on this when you got it, man?
Well, as I mentioned in last week's show, Eric, and I mentioned it a little bit on my show, I've been exposed to major depression and bipolar and anxiety and all the diseases that go with it throughout my lifetime. And, for those that have never been exposed to it or been around it, they want to make fun of it. If you've never been exposed to this kind of thing, it's like, oh, somebody's just making this up. I actually was involved in a very serious relationship with somebody who went through this on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, 10 years later, she still suffers through it, but, she's able to lead a normal life now, has a job, and is very successful because she's finally on the kind of medication that she needs to be on. But back when I was with her, they were constantly changing her medication because it is very difficult. This is a very difficult disease to pin down, and you have to find the right kind of stuff to deal with it. I was on suicide watch pretty much on a nightly basis for about a 6-month period to make sure that she wouldn't hurt herself.
Oh, that's horrible.
When you love somebody that much, you have a lot of work to do to make sure that they don't hurt themselves. And I'm sorry for saying this, but I don't think anybody around Tyson Fury loves him enough to help save his life. It sounds like to me he's pretty much allowed to do whatever he wants, and people are willing to deal with the consequences later. And that is basically the wrong kind of attitude to take.
Well, if I can play devil's advocate for a minute here, Robert, I mean, what exactly can they do? I mean, this guy is a grown man, and he's the heavyweight champion of the world, or I guess in a few weeks he'll be the former heavyweight champion. What are they supposed to do? I mean, if he wants to do drugs, I mean, he's going to do drugs. I mean, what are you going to stop him?
Unfortunately, Eric, in his situation, there's not a whole lot anybody can do because he's 6'9" and, well over 250 pounds. There's really not anybody around him that can, grab him by the shirt tail and basically sit him down and read him the facts of life. I don't know. It's a very sad situation, but I don't like to hear people that don't know anything about these diseases just say, oh, this is his way of building drama and, he's making the whole thing up. This is a very serious disease. However, I also believe you don't hold up the business of boxing. You strip those titles and you allow boxing to move on until he gets the help he needs, if he ever does.
Well, the thing is they can't follow him around 24/7. Once he leaves the gym, he's on his own time.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the problem. You would think that being in the gym, keeping his mind busy would kind of probably take and preoccupy him so he wouldn't be thinking about the depression and thinking about even trying the cocaine or doing the cocaine. But obviously the boxing wasn't enough for him. His family being there probably wasn't enough for him. And obviously I'm speculating, but something's missing, obviously. Something is definitely missing. And he has to find what that piece of the puzzle is that's missing right now, or he's never going to be whole. And that's what he needs. He needs to be whole again. And obviously right now he's not whole.
And, a couple of things, Beeb. He admitted in the article he hadn't been in the gym since May. And he definitely needs to get professional help because professionals are the only one that can help him at this point. Nobody who is not a professional dealing with these kind of mental illnesses really can't help him at this point. He really needs professional help, and But I don't know how he's going to get it, because normally you have to make somebody listen to you when they go through this. And because with the person I was with, I went to multiple therapy sessions. It made me learn a whole lot about everything she was going through. So I do have sympathy for him, and I can see what he needs, but I don't know how he'll ever get it at this point.
You know, what's funny is that, you know, kind of going back to just kind of piggybacking off what you said earlier, and you said that, you know, there's a lot of people around there that love him, you don't think, because they're kind of letting him get away with all this. You know what I mean? They're kind of letting him do all this. And I said, well, he's 6'9", he's 250 pounds, you know, he's champion of the world. What are you going to do? But, you know, you go back to that quote where he said, I haven't been in the gym for months. I have not been training. You know, I've been going through depression. I just don't want to live anymore. And he goes on with it. Listen, dude, if you as his trainer, all right, so if you as his trainer, if you come out and you say, you know, look, my guy hasn't been in the gym for 2 weeks. We got to figure this out. And if it hasn't been in the gym for 3 weeks, this fight's canceled because he needs some help. This is more than just him blowing off training. Why wasn't this ever mentioned? I mean, we're getting down to like crunch time here. You know, you're getting down to crunch time. If he's coming in, I mean, clearly you saw in his last press conferences, you know, that, you know, he had really ballooned up and everything. And maybe he's just partying. Maybe he's a champion now. He's partying. He's living life, you know, whatever. But that being said, you know, you look up here and it's like, what are you doing, my man? You know, I mean, as a trainer, why didn't his manager, why didn't one of those guys step up and call this fight and say, hey, you know, you're not fighting. I don't know where your head's at. You're not going to be ready in October. You know, what's going on here? And why didn't this happen earlier? Why did this happen just a couple of weeks? I mean, well, surely they knew.
And another question that I have, Eric, remember they canceled the fight because the fight was originally scheduled for July 9. They canceled the fight because of a supposed ankle injury that he supposedly got in training. Well, this article points out, I haven't been in the gym since May. Why would you reschedule the fight for October 29th if your fighter hasn't even been anywhere near a gym? I don't want to. Yeah.
Let me just jump in real quick, and I hate to interrupt you. I apologize, but do you think that all this was just a cover-up, and they were just crossing their fingers, saying to themselves, "Hopefully, you know, we can get this guy ready. We can kind of push all this to the side, and he'll be ready in time to fight Klitschko." Instead, like it seems like they were just ignoring it all, covering it up, not letting people know, and they weren't really dealing with it appropriately. And I hate to say this. Were they acting as hanger-ons? Because let's be honest now. Tyson Fury, heavyweight champ of the world, making millions of dollars. I mean, everybody wanted their paycheck. I mean, I know he's got his uncle and he's got his father kind of in his camp a little bit, but let's be honest. Were these guys thinking of his best interest, or were they thinking of their best interest? Because, as Eric said, I mean, he couldn't have explained it any clearer. They had to have known this was going on. They had to have seen all this stuff, and I find it very hard to believe that Tyson Fury could have hidden all the stuff from them, which obviously I don't think he did. It looks to me like they were just trying to ignore it, cover it up, cross their fingers, and hope that, you know, whatever the case may be, he would be ready at whatever condition he was in. He would still be able to get in that ring with Klitschko, and it seems like they would be doing him a disservice to put it in the ring in that state. It just is a bad look all around for me, and I think the onus is on the corner, the handlers, the management team, and everyone behind the scenes. And obviously, Tyson Fury has to be held responsible for his own actions. But let's face it, what did these guys do to help him? It seems like they were more concerned about themselves and not helping the fighter. So that's just something to think about.
My point, Joe, I don't think they did anything. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think they enabled everything to happen. And let's face it, if none of these boxing people have ever been around mental illness, they're not going to recognize the signs. So I can jump all over them for not taking appropriate action and canceling the fight and covering it up. But I can't get all over them if they've never been exposed to this kind of thing. So this is something completely that a lot of boxing people have never had to deal with before. I mean, they've had to deal with alcoholics and drug addicts and things like that, but they've never had to deal with somebody going through a severe mental meltdown. That's exactly what's going on here.
You know, but that being said, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that if a guy's not showing up to the gym, there's something wrong. And, you know, I tell you what, because those are the guys really that I got to kind of point the finger at in this, because, you know, your wife can only tell you so many times, you know, you need to see a doctor. You need, you know, I'm not doing it. I'm going here. Or your mother or your father or something like that. When your inside circle is saying that, but when it's outsiders, you know, they're not necessarily in your inner circle. Your inner circle is like your family, your wife, your mother, your father, that kind of thing. And then you have, you know, your inner circle of training partners. You know, you go to the gym. Those guys are your friends. Those guys are the guys you train with, the guys you go to war with, blah, blah, blah. Those guys, when they tell you something or when they notice something's wrong, it was on them to come in and say, you know, not necessarily his training partners. I'm talking about his manager, his trainer. And it's like Beeb said, man, I think they may have been looking out for their best interest, not his best interest. And that for me is what's a shame in this whole thing. You know, for him going out there and doing all this, it's like, you know, this could have been headed off, you know, because if they really cared about him, they could have, you know, this could have happened. He could have been stripped months ago. You know, if they really cared about him, that's what needed to happen. Because you know he's not going to pass a drug test.
Eric, I don't disagree.
Yeah,
I don't disagree at all.
And I mean, he's not going to pass a drug test. You know, so what was the point of waiting all this and making Klitschko? You know, Klitschko is over there training. I mean, you're also doing a disservice to him. You know, he's over there training. He's doing his part. He's trying to, you know, get ready for the fight. You know, everything like that. And then all of a sudden they're going to lawyers. They're, you know, trying to delay the fight. There's something happened with his ankle. Now they gave him medical reasons, so he had to pull out. I mean, why go through all this nonsense, especially the disservice you're doing to him, you know, through all this?
Yeah.
I don't get it, man. I don't get it. They handled it horribly.
No, the whole thing is disgusting.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. For sure. So, and let's talk about a little bit about the ramifications. Of course, now that he admitted to doing cocaine, the belts are as good as gone. The WBA and the WBO belts are the WBA is already, I think it's already out, but no, it's not. Either way, all those belts are as good as gone now. I mean, they're going to strip him. There's no questions about it. Robert, do you see anything that would allow him to keep the belt? I mean, I think once it's drug use and it's in competition, drug use, not even PED use, but drug use, that's pretty much it, man.
No, I firmly believe now, as Steve Kim was saying, that both organizations could make him champion in recess. But in this case, I don't even think that would be plausible, because he's got to get help and he's got to get medically cleared before he can even think about fighting anyone. So I think the best thing to do would be to strip him and allow the business of boxing to move on, and hopefully he gets the help he needs.
Well, and I don't even think he could be a champion in recess at this point, based on the fact that he failed the drug test. If it was a medical thing, and if it was like a depression thing or something like that, if there was ever a champion in recess, you know, time to use that moniker, it's then. But the fact that he, you know, failed a drug test and then just cop to it and says, yeah, I did it. I think that's going to be enough to go ahead and strip him of those titles. No questions.
Yeah, and that brings up that. Go ahead, Joe.
Excuse me, Robert. Not only that, I mean, as he said, he has a depression problem. He has some psychological issues, but he's not really taking care of them. He's not getting counseling. He's not getting therapy, and he seems to think that the remedy to all his problems is the cocaine. So that in itself is telling you that, yeah, he may have a problem. He's got more than just a problem. He's got several problems. And it doesn't seem like he has any means of course of action, I should say, to fix these problems. So with all that being said, I think the sanctioning body is going to take a look at his situation and say, you know what, this guy's just a downward. He's taking a downward spiral, going nowhere. Would it even make sense to keep him as a champion in recess when we're not even sure if he'll ever come back? We're just letting him rent these titles and hold on to these titles while there's other fighters out here that are willing and able and really want to fight for these titles and want to be heavyweight champion of the world. But Tyson Fury doesn't even know if he wants to live, let alone be heavyweight champion. So
that's right.
I think there's absolutely no course but to strip him at this point.
Yeah, I think so too. And Kid Stacy brought up a really good point in the chat. He said, what about the ring belt, the lineal championship? I don't know. I don't know. I know Oscar De La Hoya had come out and said that he thinks he's came out on Fury's side and gave him a lot of support and everything like that. I mean, obviously Oscar's went through the same thing. And a lot of fighters have. Ricky Hatton has come out, and give him a lot of support and everything like that. But, Beeb, do you think they dropped the lineal championship from him?
Well, that's like the lineal champion, the ring belt, whatever.
I mean, clearly it doesn't mean anything.
What the ring will do. Yeah, the lineal and the ring belt, they're not, with all due respect, they're not real titles.
No.
They're not. You can't be sanctioned to fight for those belts.
Right.
There's no rank. There's no true ranking sanctioning system.
No.
But even the ring will say, if you fail a drug test or after a specific amount of time you're inactive, then they'll relinquish the title. They'll take that title away from you too. So. Yeah.
So in answer to Kid Stacy's question,
they'll probably pull it too.
If he's going to get stripped of one, he may be stripped of all. So
yeah.
And he said in the article, he said that he's been clean. I guess for 3 days at the point. I guess the article was 3 days. He said he's been clean. He plans to stay clean. He's not going to do any cocaine. Man, look, drugs are drugs. You don't get off them without help. That would be a real tough sell for me. That would just be a very, very tough sell for me if he was just drug free right now. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, look at how many times Oscar De La Hoya had to go into rehab. I mean, he missed the Canelo Mayweather fight because he was in rehab. So you can't play around with this. You need professional help.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, so let's go here. All right, let's move on here to another topic here. This is a real interesting one, man. I'll tell you what, this is very, very interesting. So Star Boxing, which is run by Joe DeGuardia, who's the CEO, cancels a New York show. On October 14th, it was supposed to be a Star Boxing card in the state of New York. However, that had to be canceled. Joe DeGuardia is the CEO of Star Boxing, and he cites insurance as the reason the card was pulled. Here's the story. The new rules in New York require $1 million in traumatic brain injury coverage for each fighter who competes in an event, typically 12 to 14 boxers on each card. While many have said the cost will destroy boxing in New York due to the cost, it goes beyond that. I mean, that's a lot of money. You think about $1 million. Now, granted, it's not $1 million per fighter. It's $1 million of coverage per fighter. Okay? Big difference there. Now, as far as how much the insurance is, that I couldn't tell you because that I don't know. All right. Because, and the reason we don't know this is currently there isn't an insurance policy approved by the state. Therefore, the cost is currently irrelevant. It doesn't matter, as there's no legal way to hold a professional boxing match in New York, as the insurance required by the new regulation cannot be purchased at the present time. Robert, what do you make of this?
That just blows my mind. That I can understand the new policy to a point, but you don't even have an insurance company set to allow people to purchase what they need. I mean, give me a break. I mean, we're going to talk about it here in a few minutes, but there might be a big fight scheduled for the Madison Square Garden in December. Are you telling me that you don't have your ducks in a row to allow promoters or whoever needs to buy this stuff to purchase this stuff. I mean, that's a good way to kill the sport in the state of New York. And New York has been very important throughout boxing's lifetime to have fights there. So hopefully somebody can work something out. That's ridiculous.
Well, wasn't Bob Arum complaining about this too, saying that he couldn't afford to pay the insurance for the fighters for all the traumatic injuries as well? Wasn't he saying that the money was too much? He thought it was unreasonable. But I don't think this was just a DeGuardia move. I thought this was for Arum as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Bob did say something about it, but but Joe actually had a card scheduled. I don't know if Bob did or not.
I don't. You know what? I don't understand.
Joe basically had a kick.
Yeah. You know what I don't understand here?
Go ahead, Eric.
Is that the UFC is actually holding a card there soon? I know they're holding a card there soon. I know December 10th was dog-eared for Triple G to fight there, possibly in Madison Square Garden. It seems like there's fights going on there, but like PBC hasn't put on a fight there in a while. I mean, it's been quite a while since PBC. It's been a while since PBC's really done anything, but it's been a while. And I mean, how can they can you know what? I think that's the weirdest thing. It's not even a case that the $1 million in traumatic brain injury for each fighter. I think that's a good idea. I don't care what anybody says, man. You ask Pritchard Callin if that's not a guy. I think that's a great idea. $1 million in traumatic brain injury coverage. I mean, why not? Wouldn't you protect these guys? You know, but when there's no state approved, there's no state approved insurance policy though. So what does that mean? I mean, does that mean because there's no state insurance policy, does that mean you can get another insurance policy? Or how? That's what I'm kind of missing with this whole thing and why they canceled that show.
From what I gather, Eric, there's no way for Joe, even if he's got the money, there's no way for Joe to call anybody to say, hey, I need to buy this, because there's no insurance agent in New York willing to sell him what he needs.
I don't know. Yeah, I think that's the crazy part. You know, I mean, there has to be somebody that offers this, because again, you have, I mean, because you're talking about this, you're not talking about just New York City, you're talking about the entire state of New York. You know, and there had to be boxing there. I know there was boxing. You know, I mean, that's just odd. That's just odd that they canceled the entire show. And I thought it was, like I said, I don't know if it's money, and I wonder what the cost is for that policy, because it's $1 million in coverage, but clearly, again, you're not paying. You know, that's just like having $30,000 in auto coverage. You're not paying $30,000 a month for the auto coverage. You know, you're covered for X amount of dollars, but you pay, you know, pennies on the dollar or whatever the case may be each month to make sure that if anything happens, they cover it. So I think it's kind of misleading. I mean, it is a little misleading when they talk about the cost of this. You're talking about 12 to 14 fighters, but you're not talking about 12 to 14 $million in insurance costs. You know, you're just not, you know. So
but apparently Joe DeGuardia cannot purchase what he needs. So he was forced to cancel his show.
Yeah, very interesting. The whole thing was very vague. It was sent out via press release too by Star Boxing, and you know, so you really don't know. You know, you're only hearing one side of the story. Maybe you know what we should do is we should contact the athletic commission in New York and find out, you know, kind of the skinny on this and find out, you know, because like I said, they're holding athletic events in New York. They just I know the UFC has just got a big card coming there. I think it's 205 or something like that. They're coming there. You have the bout possibly taking place on the 12th of December. A lot of stuff, man. A lot of stuff. So if you want to call in, 323-870-3857. We're going to go to the phones now. Area code 405. I believe that's Oklahoma. You're on. Hello?
Hello?
All right, there we go. We'll see if we can come back to him later. He was doing something. Looked like he just dropped off. It sounded like he was watching TV. It's pretty good. All right.
And it had lots of kids in the background.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that, Oklahoma. All right.
No.
So now it's time Beeb, train wreck of the week.
Check it. Choo.
Love it. Love it. Beeb is our sound bite, or is our sound man. There you go. Zab Judah, charged with domestic violence. More trouble for ex-boxing champ Zab Judah. He's been charged with domestic violence and allegedly getting violent with his wife while drunk. TMZ Sports reported this. According to the police report obtained, of course, by TMZ, the Las Vegas Metro PD was called to Judah's home around 3 a.m. on July 26 for a domestic disturbance. Cops made contact with Zab, who said he got into an argument with his wife after she destroyed all of his clothes because she was jealous of an unknown woman claiming she had a baby with Zab. Zab was adamant he did not touch his wife. But Zab's sister, his wife, told the cops a different story, claiming the boxer had been drinking and pushed her into the ground by her face, just kind of mugged her, sounds like, causing her to hit the floor hard. According to the police report, the responding officer did not take notice of any injuries on the woman, but said she kept touching her face as if she was in pain. Judah was eventually arrested and charged with a misdemeanor battery, domestic violence. He's due back in court next month. Zab Judah is now a two-time Train Wreck of the Week winner. Congratulations to Zab Judah. You've made the big time now. You know,
Can I?
yes.
Can I just say something real quick, Eric? And I don't know if you agree with me or other people agree with me, but I don't know what happened, but it doesn't sound good for Zab, because obviously there was witnesses. You see these incidents happen time and time again, and these incidences, are just misdemeanors, and I think that's horrible that the court system and the judicial system looks upon domestic violence in with such leniency. These incidents, in my opinion, when you put your hands on a woman, you beat a woman up, I think these incidences should become felonies now, because they're happening too often, and people are getting slaps on the wrist for them. And more often than not, the people doing these things, doing these acts, end up doing it again. So you basically slap the guy on the wrist, send him back home, and what's going to happen next? God forbid that he kills his wife. I'm not wishing bad on anyone, but he's drunk, whatever, not doesn't have his faculties intact, and he's angry on top of all that. Anything can happen. So I just think that the courts need to take a look at domestic violence, and they need to really impose strict punishment on anyone that physically abuses a woman. Because it's just sad. It's just sad. The damage that a professional boxer could do to a man out in the street, let alone a woman. I mean, it's crazy. It's just crazy.
I'll tell you what, what's funny is that, and you hit the nail right on the head. And we've been talking about this all, for the last couple of days, about the comments, the presidential comments that were made by Donald Trump and everything like that. I mean, we heard about that. But, when I saw this, I thought the exact same thing. You're talking about a misdemeanor. A misdemeanor. He beat her, apparently he pushed her down. How do you just get charged? How is that just a misdemeanor? I mean, how is fighting just a misdemeanor? I don't get it. I don't get how you can sit here and beat this girl up or whatever. And he's got witnesses, there's witnesses over there, and he's charged with a misdemeanor battery. Look at, I think Roger Mayweather was charged. I think that was a misdemeanor as well. And Floyd, I don't know if that was a misdemeanor or not. Do you remember if Floyd was a felony or a misdemeanor?
I think that was only
misdemeanor. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was only a misdemeanor because he only got 90 days.
Yeah, and let me say this. Again, I know Roger Mayweather is not in the best of health right now, so obviously I don't want to dump on him, but he put his hands around a woman's neck. That's attempted murder, no? Yeah. Choking a woman. That's basically attempted murder.
Right.
Yep.
In my book. Because that could go wrong quick in a hurry. You know what I'm saying? So, again, I'm just disgusted with the legal system. I really am.
Yeah. Well, and then, like I said,
then of course,
go ahead.
I was going to say, then of course, the most famous case of all, what was it, 2 years ago? around September, we saw the famous video with Ray Rice, the former football player, in a New Jersey casino elevator, knocking out his wife.
Yeah, and that was, you know, and this guy's eligible to play football again.
Yeah.
You know, like nothing happened.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And then you got, you know, a guy running for president who says all that garbage that he said the other day. And then you got people that you know, that defend it. And I just don't get it, man. I mean, how is he still running? You know, no matter which side of the box you fall on, if you vote for him or you don't vote for him, if you like him, if you don't like for him, if you're a Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. How could you condone that no matter what you are? I mean, no matter what side of the box, what side of the coin you fall on, how could you condone that? You know, you just can't.
Well, Eric, what blows me away about that whole thing, and of course there'll be a lot of talk about it tonight on the debate.
Right.
But the polls came out yesterday, and he got a political boost because of what he said. You're supposed to get a political fall when you say stuff like that. He got an actual boost.
I don't get it, man. Wow. That's wow. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't get it, man. And going back to Beeb's thing, I mean, to have this all be a misdemeanor, talking about when you physically assault somebody, you know, physically, that's a felony, man. There's no two ways about it. You don't put your hands on, you just keep your hands to yourself. You don't put your hands on anybody. You know, if you're boxing, you're in the gym, or that's completely different. But otherwise, man, you don't put your hands on anybody. That's a rule. You don't touch anybody. You know, that's just, it is what it is, man.
You know, when you get mad, you get angry, go to the gym and spar a man. Go fight someone who can fight back.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's what you should do.
Right.
And let's see if you have your way with someone your own size, and your own gender, and basically as strong as you are, or if not stronger than you. Let's see how big and tough you are then. Shame on Deb, Judah.
Yeah, no. If you have a woman in your life and you're lucky enough to have one in your life, you're supposed to love her, not abuse her. You know, it's as simple as that.
Well, look, man, and I think the thing that these guys, they go in there and you know, listen. Sometimes things just don't work out. That's the way it is. Sometimes things don't work out, man. I mean, you don't get along with this person.
Right.
Or you don't. There's no reason to put your hand. Just walk out. You know, and if she destroyed your clothes, great. Walk out. Just get out of that situation, because you know nothing good is going to come from that. You know, it's just nothing good. Nothing good is going to come from those situations. So insane, just insane. Awful news. All right, so let's move ahead here. Let's talk about Daniel Jacobs versus Triple G. This was interesting. Here. There's been a lot of news and a lot of non-news on this at the same time. So Dante's Boxing Nation, some of you guys may know he's like a Ellie Seckbach kind of guy where he does the reporting and that kind of thing. He's got a lot of YouTube videos. Of course, I wouldn't put him above beating the odds with Beeb.com, but you know, he does a few boxing videos every now and then. But if you really want the true story, you go to www.beatingtheoddswithbeeb.com or, you know, ringsidereporter.com, whichever one you want to do.
Thank you.
My pleasure, my man. He reported that it was funny because he didn't actually break the story. He was reporting the reporting. He's reporting that he heard reports of. And this is where I heard him, and that's why I give him credit for this, man, because it was a good story. Daniel Jacobs apparently wants an interim fight before fighting Triple G. If that's the case, shouldn't the WBA, right? Shouldn't the WBA strip Daniel Jacobs? I mean, isn't that the right thing to do? Because he is the champion, the regular champion.
Yes.
No questions asked, right? I mean, this is a cut and dry thing.
Strip him.
The WBA has given an extension to the two sides to make this fight happen. All right?
Oh.
All right? They want it to happen. Now, Jacobs' lawyers have gotten involved. And they say they want the purse bid to be set at 60-40 instead of the normal 75-25. This is kind of unprecedented. They said it's been done maybe once or twice, but not very often. This doesn't seem like a fight that would warrant a 60-40 split on a purse bid. As everybody knows, on purse bids, it's always 75 to the champion, 25 to the challenger. That's why nobody wants to go to purse bid. So that being said, if this fight does go to purse bid, my guess is that it will be a 75-25 split. And Jacobs has already gone on record saying that he wants to get paid for the Triple G fight, this and that. It doesn't seem like now that the fight is right there, ready to be made, it doesn't seem like they're too thrilled about it. Tom Loeffler's gone on record saying that, phone calls are not coming in as fast as they were, from the Jacobs camp and everything like that. Robert, what do you make of the situation?
Well, Eric, here's what I make of this. I am sick and tired of middleweights pulling their garbage. Daniel Jacobs, he fought in September, but before that, he was out of the ring for almost a year. I mean, and he's trying to tell everybody he needs an interim fight. His interim fight was his beatdown of Mora.
How about that for an interim fight?
I'm absolutely sick of middleweights pulling their garbage when it comes to one Gennady Gennadievich Golovkin. If you're going to campaign in this division, you eventually have to step in and fight this dude. I hope he gets stripped of his title because once again, Golovkin is being screwed over here. And, I don't want to hear from people calling in or in the chat saying, well, Golovkin hasn't fought anybody. Golovkin wants to fight everybody, but nobody wants to fight him because they're too scared of him. I mean, that's the only way you can look at it. I think it's disgusting. I hope they strip Jacobs if he doesn't actually take the fight.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because everyone's talking about, this is a business, and obviously, we want to get paid for our risks. If we're going to be in a dangerous fight, we're going to be in a high-profile fight, we want to get paid. What did Danny Jacobs make to fight Sergio Mora? How much did he make in the Quillin fight? Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they offer, and please correct me because I don't know this for sure, I'm just hearing things. Wasn't Jacobs offered like $3 million to fight Triple G, if I'm not mistaken? Wasn't Billy Joe Saunders offered like somewhere in the ballpark of in between $4 and $5 million to fight Triple G? Where are these guys going to? Okay, thank you. So where are these guys going to go to make that type of money elsewhere? You know what I'm saying? And someone's going to say, well, they'll fight 2 or 3 times and get some easy victories, and then accumulate that amount of money in purse winnings. Okay, that's fine, but again, that takes time. So, you have to fight 3 fights, 4 fights to get the same amount of money that you would make to fight Triple G. So I think that money argument has to go out the window because Triple G, whether you like it or not, now that Canelo's not in this division, he's the money man in this division now, if I'm not mistaken. If Canelo doesn't come back in here, then Triple G is the guy you got to go to if you want to get a big payday. So I think that argument is irrelevant at this point that, hey, we want to get paid, because I don't see where else you can go to get paid if you're in this middleweight division if Canelo doesn't come back down here or come back up here, I should say.
Well, the way I look at it, Beeb, is these fighters are willing to take lesser fights because they don't want to fight him. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Back when we were watching Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, Felix Tito Trinidad, Oscar De La Hoya, Pernell Whitaker, Julio Cesar Chavez, they all took big fights, and you never heard any of them complain about, well, I didn't get paid enough. I mean, this is what boxing has come to now, is the fighters are more concerned about their paycheck than actually putting on good fights for us, the boxing fans.
Well, even Floyd Mayweather came out today in an interview, or I don't know if it was today, but it was a video on Fight Hype, talking about how he doesn't want to hear these fighters complain about getting paid. He's going to go to Al Heyman and tell Al, we're paying these guys too much money, or you're paying these guys too much money. Because you could say what you want about Floyd Mayweather, but he did fight Chiquinito Hernandez. He fought, Genaro Hernandez. He fought, tough fights, man. He fought everyone, coming up. He fought Jose Luis Castillo. He fought all these tough fights coming up. And once he established himself, then he started picking and choosing. These guys want to pick and choose from Jump Street, right out the gate. And you know, they haven't paid their dues. They're not in a position, they haven't earned their stripes where they can pick and choose who they want to fight. Diego Corrales, I should say. I want to correct myself. So you had Chiquito Hernandez and Diego Corrales, who he was a 3-1 underdog against. You know, and he fought Oscar De La Hoya. He moved up in weight to fight Oscar De La Hoya. So I mean, he fought the tough fights, and he did end up fighting Manny Pacquiao as well. So it's not like Floyd Mayweather, his whole career was a cherry pick. You know, these guys really, you know, they're 5, 6, 7 years in, and they're still picking and choosing. You know what I mean? Without having any big marquee fights under their belt. You know, Floyd Mayweather has had some really big fights. And even when he fought Canelo, fought a guy was outweighing him by 20 pounds. You know what I'm saying? He's, you know, stepping up in weight once again. Miguel Cotto, another guy who was bigger than him. You know, so it wasn't like this guy just took easy fights. He had to pave the way and pay his dues to get into the position he's in today. And even he himself saying, these guys want Floyd Mayweather money, but they don't want to do what I did to get here. And I don't think he could have said anything better than that.
I would agree with that 100%. They, I tell you what, man, nobody worked as hard as Floyd Mayweather did at promotion. And a lot of people, I tell you what, a lot of people forget that, you know, he wasn't an instant star. Even after, you know, he beat De La Hoya, he took a huge, you know, what was it, 80-20 or something ridiculous like that, those numbers that he had to take. I mean, he had to eat.
Yeah, Oscar got
a big, you know, big loss there. Yeah, he had to eat a big loss there before he could come back and be the star, be the money guy. And even after that, it still took him some time before he was like the actual guy, you know. And he fought a lot of good guys coming up, and he fought a lot of good guys while he was on top, you know. I mean, it is what it is. But the other thing, too, is this promotion. I mean, he promoted the heck out of himself. So while he was, I mean, nobody worked harder than him on promotion. I mean, he was always promoting. You know, we still talk about him now, and he's retired. You know, so for Daniel Jacobs to say he wants his big, massive payday for fighting what? Sergio Mora? Caleb Truax? What big time name?
Where
Peter Quillen? Come on, man.
Where is Danny Jacobs? Where is Danny Jacobs, Chiquito Hernandez? Where's his Diego Corrales? Where's his Jose Luis Castillo? Where's his Manny Pacquiao?
Yeah.
Where's his Shane Mosley? You know, where he has no one near that type of opponent on his resume. You know, people can say what they want, man. Floyd beat solid, good, great Hall of Fame fighters. Miguel Cotto, Hall of Fame. Oscar De La Hoya, Hall of Fame. You know, Diego Corrales, Hall of Fame. Chiquito Hernandez, Hall of Fame. These are all stars he beat. And when you look at Danny Jacobs' resume, who can you point to that comes anywhere near close to stratosphere of those guys?
Nobody.
It's just bizarre. Nobody. It's bizarre to me.
You know, Kid Stacy's on fire in the chat.
On the other hand,
hang on, Robert. Kid Stacy's on fire in the chat. He said, and he brought up a really good point. He said, in order to be Money Mayweather, you first have to become Pretty Boy Floyd. You know, and he's right. I mean, that's what. I mean, he's 100% right, because that's the guy. When you look at guys that were just, he was just, you know, he was on his way up, and everybody knew he was going to be something big. He was Pretty Boy. Once he got the title and he became Money Mayweather, that's when, you know, he's fighting this guy and he's fighting that guy. He's fighting Ortiz or whatever, you know, and that's when everybody starts criticizing him. But he, you know, he paid his dues to get there. Make no mistake about that. He did pay his dues. And that's something these guys don't really get. Robert, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Danny Jacobs' move here is also hurting Triple G, because once again, you're going to hear people come out of the woodwork and say, well, he's got 36 wins and 33 knockouts, but he hasn't fought anybody. I'm so sick and tired of that argument. He fights whoever they put in front of him. He destroys them. It's not his fault that he does his job the way he's supposed to, but I feel bad for the guy because he wants the mega fight. He wants the big fight. He's beaten everybody to earn it, but yet nobody has the guts to sign the contract to get in the ring with him.
Right. I agree. And I mean, what do you do? I mean, if you're, like I said, if you're Triple G, now all right, so let me throw a monkey wrench into this whole thing. All right, let me throw a monkey wrench into this whole thing. What if it goes to purse bid? What if Al Heyman wins the purse bid? What happens if he wants it? Because Al Heyman wins the purse bid, it's over. He wants it on TV, regular TV, or Showtime. What happens here?
Well, I think Tom Loeffler and the people at K2 Promotions would be smart enough to allow the fight to continue. I don't think you would see Tom Loeffler and K2 Promotions do what Kathy Duva did when they had the purse bid with Kovalev Stevenson, and main events lost, and she pulled out of the fight because they lost, and she used HBO as an excuse.
Right.
I think Tom Loeffler will find a way, because he's a very smart man, to allow this fight to go forward, whether Al Heyman wins the purse bid or not. And I have doubts whether he will, because I think the PBC is running out of money. Look at the lack of shows that they've been doing. And the ones they have been doing, they haven't really spent a whole lot of money putting those on.
Yeah, and it's not like Jacobs is a marquee name where everybody's going to say, I got to see that fight. You're going to bring casual fans out of the woodwork who say, yeah, we got to see this fight. We can't live without seeing this fight. Yeah. That come on, man. He's not that kind of guy. We know him, but your average guy, they're not going to know him, man. All right, so let's move ahead here. Adrian Bronner versus Ricky Burns is virtually set. It will take place December, and according to Eddie Hearn, the terms are virtually set. It sounds like the fight may take place in Vegas. I told you it's going to take place stateside. Ricky Burns doesn't he doesn't need to travel for that guy. That guy's going to come to him. Beeb, let me ask you, you're our UK correspondent. I know that Adrian Bronner is going to bring the title home if he fights Ricky Burns. It's not competitive. I know Adrian Bronner is going to walk all over him and bring the title back to where it rightfully belongs, to the place we call Titletown, Cincinnati, Ohio. Does Ricky Burns have a shot here? I mean, is this even fair?
At this stage, no. Even when Ricky Burns was in his prime, I still don't think he would have beat Adrian Bronner, but it would have been interesting. Now, quite honestly, I have to say, unfortunately and very sorrowfully, that this is a mismatch on paper, in my opinion. But I said it before, and I've been wrong before, and this is another one of those occasions where I'd love to be wrong again. It's not about being right or wrong; it's about watching a good competitive fight. And if I could be wrong and watch a good competitive fight, then I'll be wrong 24/7, 365, brother. But yeah. You put a gun to my head, man. I would say that Bronner would stop Ricky Burns at this point in time in both men's careers. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he has a shot.
Yeah.
So Cincinnati can claim another title. The train wreck of the week king, Adrian Bronner, will once again be 140-pound champion. That's
right. And we've actually renamed the segment to the Adrian Bronner train wreck of the week. He's laid claim to that. He's been train wreck of the week so many times. He's the king. He really is.
I got you.
All right, so this one, Beeb, we're going to need your input on this one too, because Louis Ortiz, everybody was talking about him last week because of the heavyweight fights going on. Louis Ortiz signs with Matchroom Boxing. Louis Ortiz joined Eddie Hearn, Beeb's boy, and Matchroom Boxing. Ortiz was immediately matched with Carlos Takam, and in true Eddie Hearn fashion, the fight fell through. Welcome to Matchroom. Eddie Hearn had put this fight together against Carlos Takam, who's a very good fighter, who I think is a very good fighter. He's the one that fought Joseph Parker last time that I couldn't remember his name. He's the guy that took him to a decision. And apparently Takam is going to hold out. I've got it on ringsidereporter.com. I just didn't put it down here. Takam is going to fight somebody else, and I can't remember for the life of me who it was. It's on our website if you want to go look at it. It doesn't really matter because it's not even a big fight. But the Louis Ortiz fight was clearly a bigger fight than this. Carlos Takam says nope. Right after Eddie Hearn announces it, fight falls through. Welcome to Matchroom, buddy. Beeb, what do you got to say for your boy, Eddie Hearn?
You can't blame Eddie Hearn. He could lead a horse to water, but he can't make him drink. Carlos Takam did not want to fight. It's not Eddie Hearn's fault. once again, Louis Ortiz puts his name on the dotted line, but can't get a signature on the other side of it. So give credit to Eddie Hearn, the best promoter in boxing.
Give credit to Eddie Hearn.
Scores another big fighter. Scores another big fighter in the heavyweight division. I wouldn't be surprised if we have Louis Ortiz versus Anthony Joshua somewhere down the line in the not-so-distant future. The pieces are now in motion, baby. The chessboard is set. Eddie Hearn, UK, taking over. Yeah.
Eddie Hearn, once again, grabbing defeat out of the jaws of victory by letting this fight, the very first fight he signs, falls through. Doesn't even come to fruition. Done. How about that? All right, let's talk about Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He told ESPN Deportes that he's in talks to come back in December for about to take place in Mexico. Mexico City or Monterrey, Mexico, my old stomping grounds, are leading candidates to host the fight. No opponent has been named yet. Beeb, what do you think about this? Big news, no?
So-so news.
Yeah.
So-so news.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'll watch it, but I'm not crazy excited. What do you think?
I'm not big on it. I mean, he's going to fight a nobody, I think, and we'll kind of see how that goes. And depending on how he looks, I mean, I'm sure he'll look good. They're going to put him in there so that he does look good, you know. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, so let's talk about. Let's see here. Actually, let's go to the phones. 508. You are live. 508. You're live.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Georgie Porgy.
Hey, what's going on, Georgie? How are you? I've seen you in the chat tonight. You're always giving us a thumbs up. I love it. How are you tonight?
It's a beautiful night, guys. Always listening to you guys, see what I can learn, especially from the past, because
Georgie,
like Mayweather saying, you know. Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a question, man. What did you think about when you heard the news that Aaron Pryor passed away?
Well, I didn't even know that the man passed away. I mean, when I heard the news, it was sad because for the most part, you know, like Beeb said on the show, at 140, that was the man.
Yeah.
And the loss that he got, to be quite honest, was against Bobby. Forget the name of the guy that he lost against, but the only loss that he got was kind of suspicious on my part.
It was late.
I didn't even see the punch landing. I guess there is no high resolution footage or good footage out there that you can see the punch. So
yeah, it was late in his career, man. Late in his career, he lost it.
A
lot of drugs involved, everything like that. So it was tough, man. It was tough. What do you make of Tyson Fury?
Yeah. Tyson Fury gotta leave that cocaine alone, man. That's what it comes down to it, you know. We gotta look. I mean, what can you say about him, man? He's something wrong with his brain. A man doesn't go there with a bad suit and avoid the press conference and saying he's hurt and then fell to drug tests and you keep piling all these fucking shits online. It doesn't look good for him. He just gotta like backhand the titles or whatnot and fix his life and then come back to boxing, you know, because ain't nobody gonna win. He's bad enough the way it is that we don't see the fights that we want to see. And on top of that, this man got to bring this other angle to the shit. He's going to even drag the heavyweight division even more. So just solve your situation, buddy. And when you're ready, I guess we're going to welcome you with open arms. That's what I got to say about Fury.
Very good, man.
But if you guys can allow me a minute, I would like to say that I'm putting pipe bets. I got some pipe bets out there. I got a pipe bet against James from the Boxing Boys.
No. Let me tell you this. I don't even let the other guys that are on this panel talk about that. So I'm a tyrant when it comes to this show. Okay. Georgia, you know that. You listen to me, and you know what kind of tyrant I can be when I put my foot down. You know how I am. Beeb, let him know what kind of tyrant I am. Let me tell you something. Beeb knows firsthand experience what kind of tyrant I am. Beeb, why don't you let him know?
Well, you know, you and I are on the same page with this, and you know, we put the past in the past, and we just keep it moving. We're only worried about what we do. We're not worried about what anyone else is doing, and anyone else.
I'm all for that. I just would like to say that I'm not taking any type of bets on no Twitter.
No, we know that. We know that. You're an upstanding guy, man. We see you in the chat all the time. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows
Georgie,
that,
one thing I gotta tell you about the internet, man. And Eric and I both know this because we've been trolled before. And if you respond to everybody that says something about you, man, you're gonna lose some sleep at night.
No reason to do that.
Everybody knows you, Georgie. You've been around for a while. I know you. I big up you. Eric big up you. We respect you. So, you know, you don't have to prove yourself to us. We know you're the real deal. I know everything about you pretty much. You live in my same state. You know what I'm saying? One day I'm gonna hook up with you and take you out to dinner or something, and we can hang out. But you know what I'm saying?
Most definitely.
Yeah, but you have to understand one thing, man. You know, some people just gonna say stuff, and you just can't respond to everybody on the internet, and you just gotta. Sometimes you gotta be a duck, and you gotta let it roll off your back, man. That's the only advice I can really give to you, man.
I consider myself a boxing fan. I don't consider myself to be hardcore because a lot of historian stuff that I really don't know. I cannot spoke about it, but I always think that picking when you make picks. And the knowledge about the sport got to go hand to hand. You know, that's one of my, foundation bits. If you pick, you gotta correlate with your knowledge. Because then what you talking about? You know what I'm saying? So you're not gonna win every one, but you should win more of the picks the ones that you lose. So picks for me are really, really important. So when I pick or I put a bet out there, my word's stone, and I don't break it for nobody. I want to congratulate you guys for the show. I will keep on listening like always and supporting. And great show, guys.
Hey, we love having you on, man. We love having you as a listener, man. And yeah, we like it. And in the chat, somebody just said, Georgie being offered a free dinner from the Beeb. I'm offended. LOL. I mean, he wasn't invited to a free dinner. Look at Georgie. Georgie's the man, all right, because he gets invited for free dinners. You know what I want to know, though, Georgie? You know what I take offense to? And, Georgie, if I were you, I think the real issue here, and you haven't brought it up, and I think you're embarrassed to bring it up, so I'll bring it up for you. Georgie, you live in the same state as the Beeb. Why has he never taken you out to dinner? Why has he never taken you out to lunch? Never so much as offered you a free meal. Hey, let me meet you. Let me talk to you. Beeb, why is that?
Well, you know, he used to always tell me he's coming for me, right? Then one day I gave him my address, and he said he never showed up. So, I mean, the invitation has been extended. It's just never been accepted. That's the only thing. Georgie's my boy. Georgie, where you from? Georgie, you from Lawrence? You from Lawrence?
No, Worcester, Mass. Worcester. I'm from Worcester.
Oh, so he's from Worcester. He's about 45 minutes away. Yeah.
But he's still living in the same.
No reason. 45 minutes.
All the time. All these days we're gonna get together.
That's right.
We'll hook up, man. We'll go out.
That's
man.
right.
Take you out.
Georgie Porgy, the friend of the show. That's right. There you go. All right, Georgie, we're going to go ahead and get running, man. Is there anything else you wanted to say? Any boxing you wanted to talk about?
No, I said what I got to say. Boxing is kind of slow. Everybody pretty much is waiting for the November month,
Yeah.
So things pick up. But if I only got to say one thing is this for all the fans. I rather watch one fight that's going to tell me who is the man, who is the real champion. If it's only one fight a year, I don't need 300 fights that don't tell me anything.
Yeah.
You understand where I'm coming from?
Yep.
So, you know what I believe about all these mafia, the so-called conglomerate of fucking Florence combattery that they call the so-called canceling bodies and the promotion, and the whole thing is so disgusting. So if somebody go out and put no more fight that they're not really good, I really don't care. And most boxing fans should feel the same way because you don't want to see mismatches. You don't want to see fights that don't tell you anything. Bad enough that they got all these champions. So that's pretty much it, guys. You guys have a beautiful night.
You too, man. And I tell you what,
I
couldn't agree with them more. And you talk about, like, say, the PBC, who puts on those matches, and everybody was so excited when they first came out. you know, because you got Keith Thurman on there, you got Danny Garcia, I mean, it's just beautiful. And then they lay an egg like that because they come up with matches that are, yeah, okay, these are still better than the Friday night fights and everything, but they're, you know, all right. And then they keep getting progressively
Eric,
worse.
It looks like they're going to go bankrupt, man, with the way they've been doing business.
Oh,
I'm serious.
What do you wish bad on them? What's the matter with you? You wish bankruptcy on somebody. But it's so mean, Robert.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, you guys that call in, don't worry about what other shows do. Worry about what we're doing here, because we don't want to focus on what other shows are doing.
We only focus on this show, believe it or not. That's all. I don't know what's going on in that realm around me. I really don't, man. I mean, I know Beeb. I think Beeb's the same way. We kind of focus on what we do here, and that's what we do.
I don't have time.
I know.
It takes enough of my time. It takes enough of my time to prepare for this show and do the things I need to do for this show, and plus the other things I have going on in my life. I don't have time to worry about other people. Man. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't.
That's right. Right? How many times have we talked about getting together and recording the fantasy program, the fantasy tournament on Thursday? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about it. We can't do it. We're busy, man. We're busy people, man. So we got to do the shows on Sunday now.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, it is what it is. We're busy guys. All right, let's shoot back to the phones here. Let's go back to 405. 405, you're live.
How are you guys doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
Okay. I'm doing good. Kind of enjoyed the Cowboys' victory today.
How dare you? How dare you call up here with that nonsense? How dare you? You know what? Let me tell you something about that game. There was a lot of bad calls by the refs. There's a ton of bad calls by the refs. That score the game was a lot closer than that score indicated. What did it actually end up being? What was the final score on that? Last time I looked, it was 28-7.
28-14.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Well, Eric, I got bad news for you. Next week is going to be worse because you got to deal with Tom Brady and the Patriots.
Yeah, and he looked good today, man. I tell you what, they said he looked pretty good today. Oh my goodness, man! The only thing
ran behind that Cowboys line today.
Yep.
The only thing I can hang my hat on is you're from Oklahoma, and I know Ohio State blasted Oklahoma. That's about it. That's about all I have, man.
I can't say anything right there.
Yeah.
Hey, no, they did blast Oklahoma over here bad.
Yeah.
Kind of want to talk about the Jacobs and Kennedy fight. You guys really think it's going to happen, or what's going on?
I don't know, man. I tell you what, I hope it comes off. I hope it comes off. You know, it should. I mean, but I tell you what, here's the deal. If Daniel Jacobs values this title, that fight's going to come off. Because if he doesn't, if he says, you know, if he says, hey, I want an interim or something like that, they've got to strip that title. They have to, because he's the mandatory. They're now talking about going to purse bid. If he just backs out and says no, they have to strip that title from him. So then that fight doesn't come off, and then Triple G is going to look for somebody else to fight. And you know, man, once you got a belt around your waist, I got to think that's got to mean something to you. I mean, there's got to be a lot of pride involved. You know, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that fight's actually going to come off?
Oh, I'm very skeptical, man. You know, Danny Jacobs is again, I don't want to talk bad about any fighter, but Danny Jacobs is I don't know, man. He's a tough nut to crack. I can't figure the dude out. I just don't. I can't get a read on him. I don't know what his main objective is. I know he wants to make money, but again, like I said before, this is the money fight for him. And if money is the reason why you're in the sport, then obviously you would want a big fight like this, because you're definitely going to make a lot of money in this fight, more so than any other fight that you've had in your career. I'm skeptical. The way he's talking now, interim fight, who knows what's going to happen? Because then he has the interim fight, the WBA strips him of the regular title. Then he may just go in another direction, maybe chase the WBO title. Who knows? Who knows? I'm gonna say no. I don't think right now, as it looks, it doesn't look like it's gonna happen anytime soon. No, I don't feel good about it.
Wow.
You knew after his last fight, in the interview he had after the last fight, they asked him about the Kennedy fight, and I knew it was going to kind of difficult too because right away he was like, "Well, I have the Barclays Center. We have the Barclays Center reserved for I think December 12th." Kind of saying, "Well, if he wants to fight me, he has to fight me in the Barclays." Like kind of making demands, like if he was like the ace, you know what I mean?
Like he's the guy, yeah. Like he's the guy, right?
Like he's the guy. Like if Guinea have to listen. Well, we all know Guinea will probably go anywhere to fight him, but at the end of the day, Guinea Jacobs has a chance to get 3 titles here in one fight. If he's really confident that, like he said, that he can beat him, then can go in and fight him and then beat him, take all his belts, and you know Guinea will do anything to get him back. He'll probably fight him for free if he could get him back.
Well, Madison Square Garden's already reserved, for December 10th. So, come on, sign the contract.
You know what I think one of the problems is with Golovkin too, because he had that pay-per-view with David Lemieux, which I think was ill-advised because it totally underperformed even to their expectations. So now that seems to be ammunition for everybody out there. Every fighter is trying to use this against Golovkin to try to say that he's not a draw because he didn't do pay-per-view numbers that were high or respectable in a lot of people's eyes. But, let's see what these guys do. When has Billy Jacobs been on pay-per-view? When has some of these other middleweight? When has Billy Joe Saunders been on pay-per-view? When has Chris Eubank Jr. been on pay-per-view? So, he still sells out the Madison Square Garden. He still does very well when he goes to California, like the Mexican fans love him. So this guy's got an upside. I mean, is he a Floyd Mayweather? No. Is he a Manny Pacquiao? No. Is he a Canelo Alvarez? No. But, who else out there is? These guys aren't either. So he's definitely a notch above these guys. He's definitely the A side against these guys, in my opinion. So I just can't figure out the mentality here with some of these fighters. I really can't.
Well, Beeb, the only person he's a B side against is one Canelo Alvarez.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's it.
He's got all the belts. What can you say?
Yeah,
He's got all the belts.
Jacobs has to take this fight.
He has to.
He has to,
or else he gets stripped. It's that simple.
Because the way the PBC thing is going, who knows when he get another fight? How long he'll have to wait to get another fight.
Well, not only that, but you think about this for a minute. And he's clamoring he wants money and he wants this and that and he wants a big payday. Listen, you're going to be a lot less marketable without the belt. All right, so if you fight him, you get a big payday and you probably lose your belt. Maybe you win. Who knows? Who knows what's happening? But, you fight him, it's like, man, I'll tell you what, you fight him and you get the belt, and you get all the belts, then you can name your price. But you fight him and then say you lose the belt, but if you don't fight him at all and you just walk away and they strip you of the belt, how much are you going to get on your next fight? You don't command anything now. You don't have a title. You have nothing. You're not even a name right now. So he's really got to think about this before he actually,
And it's not like he's Billy Joe Saunders who has a WBO belt who could demand crazy numbers like in negotiations, but Jacobs is just mandatory. It's not like he's a champ. He's just the mandatory to Golovkin.
Right.
That's right.
And the reason this whole thing is going down.
To fight him.
Yeah, and that's the reason this whole thing is going down because he's a mandatory. And WBA said you're not taking any more fights until you fight us.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. I think it doesn't look real bad if Jacobs forfeits that paper belt, but they look real bad on him.
Well, like I said a few minutes ago, it's almost like fighters don't care about fighting; they just care about the size of their paycheck.
Right.
Hey, Beeb, this is a question for y'all guys, but if this fight doesn't happen, like what's next for Golovkin in December? Who do you think Kaminoff is trying to get? Will try to get?
Man,
I hate to say this. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear it, but if you can't get Danny Jacobs, obviously he's not going to get Canelo anytime soon. If you can't get Billy Joe Saunders, you can't get Chris Eubank Jr., then he needs to go up, man. Gabilto Ramirez, Badu Jack, James DeGale.
Maybe have him,
As a fan, I would like to see, because people keep saying, why can't he stay here and clean out the division? That's what he wants to do. But guess what?
He's kind of already done that.
He can't even get a challenger.
Yeah.
Let alone clean out the division. He can't even get a challenger unless it's a mandatory. And usually these mandatories are not really the creme de la creme of the division in its entirety.
But
So,
keep one thing in mind, Beeb. I know you're a boxing historian. Right now, he's had 17 successful title defenses in the middleweight. He's very close to breaking Bernard Hopkins' all-time record for most title defenses. I don't know if that means something to a lot of people, but I think it means something to him.
Yeah, he's
Robbie,
not going anywhere.
With all due respect to Golovkin, with all due respect to Golovkin, and with all due respect to what you're saying, he's not gonna. It's not gonna mean the same because Hopkins fought better guys.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying? It's just not gonna mean the same. You know, in my opinion. Who knows how history will remember it, but I won't remember it as anything great. And I say that with the utmost respect to Gennady Golovkin, because it's not really 100% his fault. There's a lot of issues going on right now with him getting the fights that he needs to get. So with that being said, you know, like Hopkins said, you know, when he became unified champion, he had all the belts. All roads led to him. Well, you would think that all roads would lead to Golovkin. He's got all the belts except for one right now. But apparently, all these guys are starting to take alternate routes to get where they need to go. Because the roads aren't leading to Golovkin right now. It's not the same situation. So, go ahead. I'm sorry, bro. I don't want to hijack your call. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Remember when a champ was a champ, and he would if he seen like a mandatory or hot contender coming up, he would try to avoid him, kind of avoid the fight. But it's the other way around this time. It's like the mandatories and the contenders are avoiding the champ.
Yeah, right?
Imagine if he gets all the belts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, how about that?
Nobody doesn't want to fight him.
And one scenario to be the point, if he goes up to 168 and is successful there, does Canelo jump up to 168 to finally have that fight?
Never.
No.
Never.
No, he won't.
No.
So
it's hard enough getting him to 160.
Yeah, I've said this before, Robbie.
Okay.
Let me just jump in real quick with this. I'm sorry to interrupt. I've said this before. How long can he stay here and wait for Canelo? How long?
Well, that's true.
He
the
can't.
cutoff time?
That's
the
true.
Cutoff time?
Yeah.
September. I mean, it has to be September. If the fight's not.
He's 168.
What's that?
Go ahead, Eric.
No, I was going to say if the fight's not made by September.
He announced he's moving up to 168. Canelo will feel that his body is fit for 160 as soon as Guinea moves up.
Right, yeah. He's not fighting at 168. Yeah.
He'll wait for Golovkin to move to 168 before he jumps back up to 160. That's what he'll do.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got a feeling. You know, what's funny.
I'll let you guys go.
All right, man. You know what was funny? Thanks for the call, Oklahoma, man. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. Good call.
You know what was funny about that is that I thought after that Brook fight, man, people are going to be coming out of the woodwork to fight Triple G. And it really hasn't worked out like that. I mean, I thought for sure they would come out of there to fight him, you know. Joanne Ariana.
I mean, his mandatory is making up multiple excuses why he doesn't want to be the mandatory. That's ridiculous.
Joanne Ariana might have had the comment of the night in the chat. She said that Danny Jacobs would rather fight cancer again than face Golovkin. So,
oh, Jesus.
Wow, that's rough, man. That's rough, boy.
That's cold shit right there.
It's cold-blooded. I like it too. I like it too.
That's cold.
No more cold-blooded. I tell you what, there's no more cold-blooded than that meme that came out of Tyson Fury, and they changed him like he was in the scene in Scarface where he's surrounded by all the coke on the table. And they had a picture of him, and they put Tyson Fury's face right on it.
90 seconds.
And then, of course, true Tyson Fury form, he uses that as his his logo now, his like meme and stuff like that. I'm gonna have the Haymanites do that for me. I'm gonna have the Haymanites put my face on that Scarface guy, and then that Scarface where he's a big pile of cocaine in front of him and everything like that. That's what I'm gonna do.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right, so let's talk about this. IBF will now order Kell Brook versus Errol Spence Jr. Lindsey Tucker, the IBF chairman, told Ring Magazine that they will order Kell Brook. They will order Kell Brook to make a mandatory defense of his IBF welterweight title against Errol Spence Jr. on October 26th. So it sounds like they're going to mandate this on October 26th. The fight's not going to take place on October 26th. Beeb, I've been saying it ever since then. Ever since the fight, Errol Spence was going to become the #1 contender. that Kell Brook will not fight this guy. Eddie Hearn has kind of left the door open saying, oh, yeah, well, that's a possibility, and Eddie Hearn will let this fight fall through. But I don't think Kell Brook is going to fight this guy. I think Errol Spence will fight somebody else to get this title shot. What are your thoughts on this?
It's very interesting to listen to Eddie Hearn talk about this particular topic, because if you remember correctly,
10 seconds.
Hearn and everyone in that Kell Brook camp were saying that he could not make 147 anymore. That's why he went up to 160. And, then when he lost immediately after the fight, he said he was going down to 154. But then, lo and behold, just recently, Eddie Hearn said that he could still make 147 So we're all over the place here. I mean, it's like an episode of As the World Turns. The story has changed several times. I guess if the money's right, he can go down to probably 135 if the money's right? The way they're talking. So, I would suspect that this fight does not happen and that Brook does go down to 154 as opposed to 147. And then Kell Brook will have to fight somebody else. But another interesting question I have for you and everyone else out there is Errol Spence going to be that guy that everyone doesn't want to fight now? Is he going to be the new boogeyman at 147 now? Because it doesn't seem like anyone's chopping at the bit to fight this kid yet, because obviously he's doing well. He's starting to make some noise now, and he's really starting to look impressive. And he really looks like he's ready for that upper echelon level of opposition. But he's in a dilemma now because he's still not that name yet. He still doesn't have that recognition, doesn't have that drawing power that some of the other guys have, like a Danny Garcia does. So will it be worth the risk to fight this guy? Will the reward suffice the risk?
No. That's
a big question you have to ask yourself. And all these welterweights may take the path of least resistance when it comes to Errol Spence. So, let's see how this whole thing plays out. And let's see who Errol Spence does fight next. And if it will be for that vacant IBF belt or if it will be for, Kell Brook's IBF belt. Very interesting.
He's going to have problems. Spence is going to have a lot of problems getting fights because he's a lot of risk and not a lot of reward. He's going to have the same problem, because, right now, but he's got to go establish himself. I mean, he doesn't even have a title yet. We forget about that. We may call him the best fighter in the division, but he doesn't even have a title yet. So until he gets a title and then he starts, walking through guys and putting them away and stuff like that. I mean, look at Terrence Crawford. We've thought he was a really good fighter from the get-go, and now he's proven it. And now he's starting to get the notoriety and everything like that. But it took him a while to get there. So Spence is still very young in his career, so while nobody's going to be in a hurry to fight him, he's going to put on some impressive performances up until the time where he's going to be the money guy, So he's still a long way away from that.
Errol Spence is going to suffer from Gennady Golovkin disease. Nobody's going to want to fight him either. I mean, that because he's gonna keep putting on good shows and keep putting on good performances. And the better he looks, the lesser people are going to want to step in the ring with him.
I would go along with that. So there you go. All right. So let's go to our next segment here. As I've alluded to beforehand, Beeb and I usually do the welterweight tournament, the fantasy welterweight tournament on Thursday. And I say that very loosely. We usually do it on Thursdays. But now we've been putting it on the Sunday show because that's pretty much the only time we have right now, man. So both of us are pretty short on time. So with that, we have another edition of the fantasy welterweight tournament. And the way this works is we put 32 of the biggest names in welterweight history together. Each week, we break down the fights and give you the result according to the way we think it would have happened. The 3 judges for each fight will be myself, Joe Habib, and a third judge will be a computer program. And the computer will give its opinion on how the fight would have played out. All fights will be 12 rounds. I really wish, I think the music, the intro music for this is probably the best intro music we have. I think it's so awesome. I should put this on there before we play it, but I save that for the regular shows. So, all right. First fight, Beeb, Wilfred Benitez versus Kid Gavilan. Kid Gavilan was considered by many to be one of the greatest champions in welterweight history. He held the undisputed welterweight championship in 1951. He was best known for his boxing ability and his chin. Kid Gavilan had 108 fights, and he was never knocked out. How about that for a chin? Wilfred Benitez, the Radar, was one of the best defensive boxers you'll ever see. He is synonymous with Puerto Rican boxing and was a master technician in the ring. Benitez held the world title and fought just about everyone in his day, including Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran. Let's break this fight down. Power. I give the edge. I think I have to give the edge here to Benitez.
Yeah, most definitely Benitez. Kid Gavilan has had about 145 fights and only has 28 knockouts in those in his career. So definitely, Kid Gavilan is not a knockout puncher.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, speed. I give the edge here to Benitez.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would.
This is kind of a no-brainer. I mean, it could be a push, but I'm going to give the edge here to Gavilan as his chin. I give the edge here to Gavilan. Not knocked out in 100-some-odd fights. You got a beard, man.
Yeah, not being knocked out in 143 fights.
It's crazy.
Definitely give him the edge here.
Now, this is interesting, too. Now, boxing ability. I'm going to give it a push. I really am. I thought that Kid Gavilan is something else, man. He really is. He's a very good boxer. Wilfredo in his time was a great boxer, too. Just a defensive wizard. I'm going to give it a push, though, for boxing ability. What about you?
You know, this is very interesting because both guys were tall. They're about 5'10"-ish. They were tall and lanky. And Benitez was more of a technical guy. Didn't do a lot of excessive movement, but he, moved his head very well. Blocked shots very well. Was a good counter puncher. But the thing about Gavilan was he could do a little bit of all that stuff too, but he was a little bit more athletic. He moved a little bit more.
Okay.
And he was a little bit unorthodox too at points. So he'd be a little more trickier, a little more craftier, maybe a little bit harder to figure out. I'm going to slightly give the edge to Gavilan here in boxing ability because I think he has a little bit more versatility, a little bit more tricks up the sleeve, whereas Benitez is more textbook.
Yeah. So let's go to the X Factor here. Let's go to the X Factor, and the X Factor here is styles. For me, it's going to be the style of both fighters. Will be able to, will he be able to catch up to Benitez? Benitez is a defensive wizard. He is just a supreme boxer, man. Both guys are. And how do the styles clash from Gavilan's day to Benitez's day? To me, that's going to be the factor here because they're both superior boxers back in their day. So how does this work out? What about you? What's the X factor?
The X factor for me is going to be Gavilan's chin, because both these guys are pretty even in a lot of areas. Like the boxing ability, in my opinion, is close. I think the speed is close, but I think obviously Benitez is the heavier hitter. But will that matter against a guy who's never been stopped in 143 fights? So the X factor for me is going to be Gavilan's chin and durability.
Okay. All right. Beeb, how do you see the fight playing out?
Well, as I said, Benitez is a straight up and down prototypical boxer, likes to box from the outside. He's very accurate, pinpoint puncher, had an outstanding jab. Gavilan was a good boxer as well, but he moved a little bit, went in and out, gave you different looks. So I think this is going to be nip and tuck early on. I think both guys will go back and forth, trading rounds. But I see Gavilan being a little bit too crafty in this fight as the fight goes on because, as I said, he gives you the different looks. He's a little bit unorthodox at times. He could throw some of those winging shots as well as the straight, basic up and down type shots that a boxer normally throws, textbook punching. I think if you add in some of the unorthodox stuff and you add in the movement as well, I think that he'll switch things up. And I think the versatility and the constant changing of looks and the unorthodox way he can approach his offense at points I think that'll confuse Benitez because we've seen Benitez in there with a guy like Sugar Ray Leonard, who was a master boxer, a guy who moved very well, a guy who can give you different looks. And he had some problems in that fight. Definitely had some problems. Looked confused a lot in that fight. And I'm not saying that Callin is the same type of fighter Sugar Ray Leonard is, but I think he could do some of the same things that Sugar Ray Leonard did, even if not to that level of effectiveness. He can come pretty close to doing some of those things. And I think that he will confuse, befuddle, and frustrate Wilfredo Benitez. And I think he'll outbox him over the course of 12 rounds or 15 rounds, whatever it is.
12 rounds, yeah. Wow, so your pick?
So I'm going to say he'll win by 12-round decision, Kid Gavlin.
Wow. All right. Here's how I see the fight shaping up. Kid Gavlin, to me, is a very good boxer. He was a great boxer back in his day. That being said, if you watch his style back then versus the styles of today, and by today I mean Benitez styles in his day, in the 80s and stuff like that, I don't believe he would have fared well against Benitez. I think Benitez's speed, his caginess, his range would have definitely given Gavlin a lot of problems during the fight. That being said, I think that Gavlin weathers a few tense moments and gets out of the fight, but will not do enough damage to win the decision or even come all that close. My pick is Wilfred Benitez by unanimous decision. So, Beeb has taken Kid Gavlin. I have taken Wilfred Benitez. Now we go to the computer. The computer pick, with 67% of the wins coming by way of decision, Kid Gavlin beats Wilfredo Benitez. How about that? How about that?
Well, one thing to keep
for the win.
one thing to keep in mind about Wilfred Benitez, he became the youngest champion because he won his first title at age 17.
Robert, who would you pick? Who, if your vote counted, who would you pick in this?
Wilfred Benitez.
That is.
Wow.
That is.
Do you forget the Bolo punch though?
The Bolo punch. I saw that.
Who can stop the Bolo punch?
Oh my gosh. Unreal.
That's where Sugar Ray Leonard got it from.
Yeah, I know. But Kid Gavlin only knocked out 28 opponents, as you said yourself.
Kid Gavlin.
That's why this fight goes the distance.
Moves on.
That's why this fight goes the distance, Robbie. Come on.
Yeah, all right.
All right, let's do our next one here. Jose Napoles. Beeb going crazy over there. He loves it. Jose Napoles versus Ricky Hatton. Jose Montequilla Napoles had a record of 81-7 and was the undisputed welterweight champion. He defeated Curtis Coax in 1969 to win his first undisputed welterweight crown. Napoles was a very good boxer that could definitely put you away. Among his 81 wins, 54 of them were knockouts. Ricky Hatton was and still is beloved in his home country of the UK. The UK has had many champions and fighters, but Ricky Hatton has been up there with one of the most beloved. Most of Ricky Hatton's fights took place at the light welterweight, but he did win a WBA title from Louis Collazo and also challenged Floyd Mayweather for the welterweight championship. I was looking at this fight last night, and it hit me. Hatton only had like a handful of fights at welterweight. And I was like, but he did win a title there. And he was a very popular fighter, which is why he's in here now. So that's one of the reasons. But most of his fights did take place at light welterweight. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Let's break this fight down. Power. I have to give the edge to Hatton here.
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to give it to Napoles.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to give it to Napoles.
Speed. I'm going to give also of that to Hatton.
Wow. I'm going to give it a push, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because Ricky Hatton, I always said this about Ricky Hatton. I thought he had very quick feet, but his hand speed was slightly above average, in my opinion, at the upper echelon level. Whereas I think Napoles maybe a little slower of foot than Hatton, but I think he probably had quicker hands. So I'm going to give it a push.
Okay. Now, Chin. To me, both guys have been put away. I'm actually going to give this a push.
Chin, I'm going to give a slight. I'm going to give it to Napoles because he's had a lot more fights, and I think that being knocked out 4 times in 88 fights is not anything to be ashamed of. Whereas Hatton had far fewer fights.
Yeah, I agree.
He was knocked out about. Was he knocked out? He's knocked out 3. He's knocked out 3 times.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Boxing ability. I am actually going to give this to Hatton.
I'm gonna give it to Napoles.
Okay.
I just think he was a little bit more technical.
Now, the X factor in this fight for me is going to be Hatton's pressure. Is Napoles going to be able to handle the pressure that Hatton puts on him? What's the X factor for you?
I think the X factor for me is going to be Napoles' conditioning. And I'll tell you why, because this is the type of fighter that you would need against a pressure fighter, a guy that could fight at that fast pace. And I think Napoles could definitely fight at that fast pace and be able to keep up with Hatton. And I think he'll be able to deal with the pressure and the aggression of Ricky Hatton, whereas a lot of fighters couldn't, because Hatton would wear them down because he would just break them down. I'm not so sure he'd be able to break Napoles down as easily as he's broken down other fighters, or if at all.
Okay. Now, how does the fight play out? I like Jose Napoles. I think he was a good fighter back in his day, but that being said, I think he would have a lot of problems with Ricky Hatton. Napoles was a good boxer, but I think the pressure that Hatton brings to the table would give him a lot of problems. Napoles would not be effective getting away from the pressure of his footwork because he had never faced this type of pressure. Hatton is going to be in his chest all night long. I also think a factor would have been Hatton's strength. He's one of the stronger fighters that Napoles faced. I think Hatton goes after the body early and causes a ton of problems for Napoles. Ultimately, Hatton gets him out of there. My pick is Ricky Hatton via knockout within 6 rounds. Now,
Eric,
the computer pick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The computer pick. That's okay. The computer pick with 83% of the win total. Jose Napoles. We now have a split decision.
You forgot me though. You forgot me, didn't you?
We now have a split decision.
Yeah, you didn't ask me.
Beeb. Quiet. We now have to go to Beeb to give us the decision.
You skipped over me. Okay.
There's a method to my madness
here.
This
was going to be my breakdown before you leapfrog me with the I'll just play it. I'll forgive you. You made a great point earlier. And you made a great point earlier, and I'm going to say this, and I think it goes without saying, basically, is Ricky Hatton was really not a welterweight. I think he was more, his best weight class was junior welterweight. And you can argue that fight where he won the title against Luis Collazo, a lot of people actually thought he lost that fight. And I thought that was a razor close fight. Whereas Jose Napoles was definitely a true welterweight. The difference for me with Ricky Hatton is he tended to telegraph a lot of his punches. Even though he put on a lot of pressure, he had quick feet, he got in his opponent's chest, he had a hitch to his punches. When he threw that hook, he kind of cocked it and, gave his opponent time to kind of react to it, engage it, and see it coming. If you notice, or if you ever watched Jose Napoles fight, YouTube or whatever, he was a very smooth, fluid boxer, being from that Cuban school of boxing. And because of that, I see him being able to punch inside of Hatton's wide shots. And I think he would pick Hatton apart. Sort of like I thought Luis Collazo did very well against Hatton with the counter punching. I think Jose Napoles, who I consider a boxer puncher, whereas I just consider Hatton more of a pressure fighter, I think the boxer puncher has more tools in the toolbox to be more equipped to deal with the pressure fighter, and in this case, Ricky Hatton. So I just think the more smoother boxer, the more fluid combination puncher, the more pinpoint accurate puncher, and just the overall better boxer, in my opinion, Jose Annapolis would cruise to a unanimous decision here. I think he would be tough early on, but I think once Annapolis picked up on the rhythm and kind of saw those little hitches and the cocking of the hands there and those loading up type shots that Hatton threw, I think once he figured that out and got the gauge on that and the timing on that, I think he would outbox Hatton. So yes, once again, Jose Beeb agrees with the computer here.
Wow, Jose Annapolis in a split decision will now move on to the next round. And all of you people who listen to Beeb, the adopted son of the UK, this weasel has just turned his back on you. This Benedict Arnold has turned his back on the entire country of the UK. And I know you're not going to sit down for it. You better not ever wear that Union Jack on this program again. How dare you, sir? How dare you turn your back on them like that?
When I sit at the
picked Ricky Hatton. You remember that.
They frisked me of all my paraphernalia. I have to put my UK flags, I have to leave them at the door. I have to take my Union Jack shirt off, and I have to go in. Unbiased when I'm at the judging table.
Very good,
you know what
man.
I'm saying? I have a job to do. I have a sworn duty when I sit at that judge's table. I'm sorry. Much as I love my UK brothers, I have to leave all that at the door when I'm sitting at the judge's table.
Don't try to kiss up to him now. Don't try to kiss up to him now. It's all said and done, buddy. You're on record. The beloved fighter of England, second to maybe only Frank Bruno. Second, maybe only to Frank Bruno, and you went against him. Just treason. You just went right against him.
Hey.
You'll be dissing the Queen pretty soon.
I know.
What are you doing? What's the matter with you?
Well,
isn't it amazing, even when Hatton lost, how loved he still was?
Oh, my
so
goodness.
similar to Frank Bruno. Him and Frank Bruno, it was amazing how loved they were.
Oh, yeah.
Look at how loved he was after he got KO'd by Pacquiao, man. That wasn't even
I know.
Why do you have to bring that up?
It was amazing.
We're talking about his good times in here. You bring up a KO by Pacquiao. What's the matter with you? Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, Robert.
And,
come on, show
by
some
the way,
class.
Napoli definitely would have won that fight.
Oh, what do you know about it? You're not even a judge. Your opinion doesn't count. What are you doing?
You switched up, Robbie. Why you switching up?
No, I didn't switch up. I never picked Hatton.
No, he never picked Hatton. He never picked Hatton. Yeah, he picked Benitez. He picked Benitez.
I picked Benitez, definitely. But Hatton definitely would have lost.
Oh, okay.
Very good. So let's talk about the Sweet 16. Now, the fighters in the Sweet 16. Here's the next round's matchups. Sugar Ray Robinson versus Donald Curry. Listen to this one. Thomas Hearns versus Pernell Whitaker. Buddy McGirt versus Shane Mosley. Yeah, right. Jose Annapolis, who just won tonight over England's own, put there by England's adopted son. Jose Annapolis will fight Floyd Mayweather. Henry Armstrong will fight Oscar De La Hoya. Vernon Forrest will fight Felix Trinidad. Manny Pacquiao, get ready for it, is going to fight Roberto Duran. Kid Gavilan will fight Sugar Ray Leonard.
No.
Wow, right? Right?
Who's the matchmaker there?
Yeah, man. How crazy is that?
So what fight do we do next Sunday, man?
I'm thinking Sugar Ray Robinson and Donald Curry and Oscar De La Hoya and Henry Armstrong. We're gonna do one from each bracket. And I'll try to get this posted, hopefully.
All right.
So,
Wow.
yeah. So those are good fights, man. The Sugar Ray, I tell you what, the Sugar Ray Robinson Donald Curry fight, I think is a good one. I think that's a really good one.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that fight.
And then coming, of course, in 2 weeks, we're going to have the Thomas Hearns versus Pernell Whitaker fight. So there you go. How about that?
Oh, yeah.
There it is, man. Lots to look forward to.
Now see, boxing people, this is how you make fights.
That's right. That's right. You just put them in a big bracket and let me and Beeb go at it.
That's right.
That'll do it for this edition of Ringside Reporter. As always, you can catch Robert on Twitter at Ringside Robert, or you can call Ringside Robbie's Corner at 773-572-7781 and listen to all the podcasts and fights. You can catch Joe Habib on Twitter at jhabib1 and find his YouTube channel at www.beatingtheoddswithbeeb.com. I'm at Ringside 73, and we will see you next week.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you for
Good night,
using
everybody.
Blog